Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council Special Budget Review Session to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have roll call, please?
Alderman Taylor. Alderman Kraut-Kramer. Alderman Kean. Alderman Zielinski. Alderman Spencer. Alderman Benner has been excused, and Alderman Nichols will be here shortly.
The first item on the agenda this evening is people from the gallery to be heard on matters pertaining to the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard this evening? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the budget reviews. We have 3 of them this evening. The first one is the fire department, and Chief Auctioner is here. Chief, would you like to start out with just a general description of your budget, and then we can open it up for questions?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit different than most. We go through a lot of different narratives in here that somewhat explain what we've done through the year, expect to do in the future, objectives we have and everything. And we usually, most people find it a little helpful to go through that and be able to read some of the things that are happening. Then we do outline, this has been a common practice for us for many, many years, changes in the budget. I mean, we don't actually go over changes of $10, $50 or something. It's something, if it's a little bit more significant, we try to give an explanation of where it comes from, whether it's an increase or decrease, things like that. And it's just something common that we've done for a long time. I know that there are some things in here, and I don't know if I don't want to go over each one right now. It's just, if you have any questions, there are some significant increases in some areas, like it was, oh gee, where am I now? The license renewal and things like that. License renewal was a huge percentage, but the $9,400 we have to do once every 2 years to recertify our first responders. So that was a little bit of an increase. It shows up like at 1,000% increase or something like that, but it's pretty, I think it was just about 0 before. I can go to that page. But things like that, just so you can understand a little bit. I do want to make one change to the budget that Mayor Merkus had mentioned, and I looked into it, and we're changing the way we operate this year and the way we'll operate in the future. We talked on page 46, if you go to the budget line number 225, it's commercial dumpsters. If you go about 3/4 of the way down the page, you'll see 225. What we did is the smaller amounts in 2012, 2013 were results of collecting garbage at Station 32. And then when the tech school moved out, that number's going up. But Mayor Merkus pointed out during our discussions that Menasha still continues to pick up the garbage at Stations 35 and 36, which I just didn't catch on right away. So I'm going to take that $1,200 out of the budget and try to refinance what's been expended, the expenses this year, and relocate them to the Nina Building Expense Fund. That's 100% Nina's responsibility, because Menasha continues to pick up our garbage at our stations, and we have to use dumpsters, commercial dumpsters. The City of Nina does not pick up commercial entities, and they consider us a commercial entity, so I'll have to take that out of the Nina Buildings Fund and try to get our budget this year squared away so the City of Menasha doesn't contribute to that this year, nor next year is what it amounts to. So that $1,200, the total amount will be eliminated from the budget, and we'll take care of that in our maintenance of building funds for the City of Nina. Alderman Zielinski.
I just have a question. Nina allows you to take some stuff. They have a dumpster set up for the city residents, and I'm sure the fire department can probably drop off. How much are you talking?
We are going to look into that. I think the big thing like even Station 31, I'm going to talk, I had the budget workshop for Nina Monday night, and we talked about me getting contact in public with Public Works, or even this small amount of garbage that's at Station 31, being able to maybe eliminate that dumpster due to the fact that the site for a dump is so close. It's only a block and a half away, so it wouldn't be anything for us to maybe eliminate that expense for the city of Neenah also, but I do want to make sure that I do take that off the operating budget so that the city of Neenah doesn't have to pay any portion of that. And we'll make that adjustment for this year, and we'll take it out of the budget for next year. Going on from there, the overall budget through all the entities that are involved, special operations, joint finance, the dive rescue, and the general operating budget, an overall increase of 8%, but it shows up, it reflects a higher increase for, if you go back to page, you go back to page 45 in the Menasha portion where Peggy and the finance department has accounted for the dollars. There's a significant, I don't know if it's significant, but there's a larger increase there due to the fact that the formula changed. The formula for the city of Menasha went up over 0.5% as far as their contribution, and Neenah's went down 0.5%, the same amount. So I just wanted to make you aware that portion of the budget for Menasha did go up a little bit more than as the city of Neenah's went down a little bit. So going from there, I don't want to take up too much time. If you have questions, that's what we submit for a typical budget in Neenah, and the budget right here matches what we submit in Neenah. So I entertain any questions you have regarding Neenah Menasha Fire Rescue's budget.
So Chief, last year, we had the opposite happen with the percentages, so we're probably more or less back to where we were 2 years ago?
That's correct. Right now, the city of Menasha is at .3999, which is, we've always used the 40% as a sort of a, whenever you discuss it and casually, it's always been around 40%, and 40% is where it's at right now, pretty much 40-60. And that's the way it's been over the years of the operations and the figuring of the formulas. I don't think it's differed by more than 1% totally in either direction of 39.5 or 60 or 60.5. I think it's pretty much stayed within that for the whole time as far as the formula goes for the two cities.
Alderman Zielinski?
Thank you. Overtime and wages, overtime's going up 17.919%.
Yes.
How has this been doing over the last 5 years?
There's a lot of things that have been happening over the last couple of years, and one of them is workman's comp and FMLA experience, along with fires, emergency operations. A lot of things have contributed to the fact that the overtime budget is increasing. And this year, the fact that we're going to be over around, I would guess, $35,000, $40,000 is attributed to largely workman's comp concerns. We've had a number of workman's comp claims this year that people have been off for, a number of FMLA-related instances that people are currently off for. Like right at this current time, we have 3 people on FMLA, and in December there's another 2 going out. So it's just one of those things that I can't explain totally, other than the fact that a lot of guys, preventive medicine nowadays really gives these guys an opportunity to correct knees and shoulders and things that are really nagging injuries. I think they have the ability to do a lot more corrections than they ever used to in the past as medical advances are made with MRIs and all the other things. A lot of guys end up with different concerns, health issues, shoulder, like I said, shoulders, knees, physical issues that they have, and that's increased dynamically over the last couple of years especially.
Can we change staffing level in any of the trucks or anything like that to
A couple years ago,
overtime?
we did make an adjustment at Station 36, but right now we operate with 3 men on a truck and 2 men on a quint for minimums, and that's pretty much bare bones as far as low as you really want to go on a truck. So we operate at those minimums right now, and if there's adjustments, we just try to maintain that as staffing per NFPA requirements and all the other safety issues that are involved as far as fireground operations and everything.
Peggy, is this happening across the whole workforce of every department, or just?
We saw a little bit of a spike in work comp this summer. We don't have a ton. I think he's probably got more than average this year is what he's saying. But
Well, the FMLA, how is that working across the board on all the other departments?
yeah, we don't really have
Everybody
a
comes
huge
up with the
spike.
same problems as everybody else, so.
Right, right. We have some work comp. Those weren't really lost time events this year. Not a lot of them. So I'd say for the city of Menasha, we don't have a spike this year. But it kind of comes and goes as far as those kind of things. And usually in a role of a firefighter, they have different ages in which retirement happens. So they're tending to get those things done at a younger age maybe than the general workforce would be doing it.
Was there any way of tracking why they're taking off? Is it because of their injuries, or family injuries, or family incidents? And
The FMLA can be associated with personal injury and personal illness. Those are related to personal use of sick leave. FMLA is just a way of monitoring it, so you can't use it extensively, and how it applies to different, it really applies to more non-union related issues. In union related issues where you're allowed to accrue hours of sick leave, there's a little bit of difference there because people are allowed to accrue more hours of sick leave than normal, and for a lot of different reasons as far as negotiations have gone through the years.
so what kind of wellness program does the fire department have?
We have a wellness program where we actually right now we're in the first stages of our wellness program where we're doing blood draws for a physical assessment, and then in January we start the general physicals for respirator use and all the other things, and we go on from there. And the guys are given physicals and to give them a good idea of where they're at. A lot of times, you know, when you do work out and you stay active, you injure yourself a lot more, and that's one of the things that has happened to us in the past in a couple instances where someone working out or something it's caused an issue.
Is that work related, or is that
Most of the ones this year have not been work related. It's usually a compound. It's usually a thing that's developed over the years, but sometimes aggravated by working out wherever you are. And the ones that we have right now are FMLA issues, personal sick leave issues that have had personal.
So how do we get a handle on this? Or this? I hope it doesn't spiral out of control, or because as you work other people more, there's going to be more incidents and.
Right. I don't have a real good answer for that. I just do not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, Chief, workman's comp injuries to our employees are very troubling, and it's something, you know, we should prevent at the highest level. And I know the company I work for, anytime there's someone injured, there's an investigation. And I don't know, Peggy, do we have an investigation committee that looks into why a person was injured?
We don't do that internally, but CIVMIC is our liability provider, and they do a very, very thorough investigation, and
Okay.
I believe they're Nina's as well.
And I was wondering if we have what we call a work hardening program, where when individuals are hurt, they're under doctor's care and they're back end, and they got a specific timeline on how their prognosis and their recommendation of therapy is.
We continually ask our people to submit any doctor's reviews for continued monitoring for their condition, and they do that on after every doctor's visit. We require them to submit documentation on what their status is, what their doctor thinks is going on, if they have limitations. If it's a workman's comp claim and they can do light duty work, like during the day, we have the guys will come in and they'll do inspections 9 hours out of the day and fill in for where the inspector normally would. They'll come in and do the inspections so that person can fill in the firefighter role that we're missing. And we rotate people in there that are on workman's comp that are allowed to work a light duty but have restrictions on lifting weights, on the weights they can lift and their mobility. If they have to get a doctor's clearance, and once they're cleared for light duty, they come and work light duty. They don't stay on, they no longer stay on workman's comp.
We don't let people, we don't allow people to stay home if they're capable of coming to work. The light duty could be anything from shuffling some papers to, the company doesn't allow that. They feel you get better if you're back in a work environment, and they feel it's their responsibility to have that person at work. So that's what's going out there in the public. The overtime is alarming, and I don't know if it's just your department or if it's citywide. I guess we'll have to look into that. And we used to have up here, every packet, we would have a list of departments and how many employees are off, and I think we should go back to that. I think the body up here should know when people are off, and I know we have our HIPAA laws, and we don't have to know specifics, but if somebody's off on FMLA, it should say that. If somebody's off on workman's comp, it should say that. And I think the body up here needs to have that type of list.
If you look at the last memo that we sent out, Tara does a great job at helping keep track of that. If you look at the last memo we just sent out, I think she sent it out today, so you may not have seen it. There is somewhat a report on there of what's been happening, and it's not that extensive that we have individual names down or what it was, but I mean, if that's what someone would like, I mean, we can definitely keep track of that and put that in that memo as far as that goes. As far as any conditions that are existing, we would not do that.
Well, I said that. I said, you have the HIPAA laws that you have to abide by,
Right.
so I'm not asking to disclose anything that we would not want to disclose. Something else that employers have been doing is there's a lot of people out there that have their own personal businesses and operate outside of their own business, and that stuff is recorded properly to make sure that somebody's not getting hurt in their own private business and then bringing it back onto the company business. So that's something that's investigated rather thoroughly, and it should be documented in that manner. And also, I don't know how we report injuries and how much of a worksheet that's filled out immediately. You can't, where I work, you can't fill it out the next day or 2 days later or a week later. If you were injured, it has to be reported, has to be documented, and then there has to be an investigation done. So overtime's very expensive. Injuries to our city employees is not a good thing, and I don't think any of us want to see. Our number one responsibility is to provide a safe work environment, and with this amount of overtime, it seems like we have some issues, and maybe we'll have to look at that.
We do maintain rigid report requirements. It's a very detailed report. Those reports go to HR and in turn move on to CIVMIC, and CIVMIC does do a very good job of investigating those at this time. I look to them to maintain their services. That's what we pay for, and they do a thorough job of investigating those injuries. And we do definitely fill out. It's a lengthy report that we have filled out immediately, if possible. If there's something that's extenuating to prevent them from filling it out, we get it as soon as we can.
And you were saying there's people being injured with weight training and things, and I don't know if each individual is through one of our healthcare providers, if they have a regiment that, or if we're lifting too many weights or too many repetitions or something. But if we're being injured in a weightlifting capacity, I think that should be almost personalized for each individual. And so if if that's what's happening, I think we need to address that issue too.
The one thing that everyone in the communities expects of their firefighters is for them to be physically fit and able to do the job. To try to make sure that's done on a personal level is sometimes challenging, but if we allow them to work out in the evenings, that's usually after the normal hours they work out, and try to maintain a good physical stature to do their jobs. And that's where some of this, sometimes, not a tremendous amount, but sometimes it does happen where an injury does occur. But I would expect that the citizens really expect their firefighters and the police to maintain a certain physical ability and aptitude as far as that goes to do their job.
Absolutely, and that's also where our professional policemen, firemen, and we have professional healthcare providers, and maybe if we're having a problem with that weight training and we're getting people that are being injured, we maybe need to have a professional come in and set up a different program and look at that. If our employees are being injured doing that, we need to make an adjustment to that. That's our number one responsibility as an employer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there physical fitness requirements for new employee candidates? Is that part of the?
We give them agility tests. They are required to, they're required to do what's called a CPAT test. It tests all their abilities to function with pulling ceilings, chopping, crawling through, using an SCBA. There's a lot of things that test measures. We require them to do swim tests, air climbs, lifting tests when they come in to be hired. There's a lot of things that we do to evaluate an individual before offering them a position, even on the department.
Okay. Is there any requirement that they maintain a certain level of fitness?
There is no specific level attached to each individual, no.
Okay. My experience with injuries due to working out is they're mainly due to poor technique. Do they have any trainers available or coaching available that would help them?
We actually have guys that work at the Y as physical trainers, and they bring those skills to the department. Okay. I can't guarantee that something won't happen, but there's guys that do work for the Y as physical trainers, and guys rely on them pretty heavy to try to do things properly, and we have someone available for that.
In the budget, the replacement of the truck this year, where is that reflected in the budget numbers?
It's reflected in the CIP portion of the budget. If you go to page, and I know that Peggy's distributed some the CIP for 2016. If you go to page 50, excuse me, I've got some sinus problems right now. Really, page 49 and 50.
Okay.
If you look on page 49, close to the bottom of the page, the last figures that are listed, you'll see $407,000. That is the new pumper. And in the last two columns, it shows Menasha's share and Nina's share according to the formula.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Zelinski?
Thank you. The burn training building, what's the status then?
The building that's still in use, we still use it on a regular basis. It's been turned over to us. There are some, we did get a safety report on the building before the tech school turned it over to us, and there are some changes and some work that needs to be done to maintain the building and to maintain it for use in the burn rooms, burn room panels. The tech school, I think, they knew they were leaving, and so some of the things that are involved that are costly are burn panels that we can actually start fires in the room using whatever means. We actually use different furniture setups and sometimes pallets or seltzer or something to smoke up the building. The building's big enough for us to start a fire in the burn room, allow it to smoke the building up, and we can do search and rescue evolutions. Like I said, search and rescue are the big ones. We'll use a thermal imaging camera, go in, and be able to fill that building with smoke and do training evolutions in there under very, very similar conditions to an actual fire. But the burn room panels, to keep that fire contained in a specific room, they're one of the things that we're in need of right now in the tech school. Not that they did anything wrong, but they've just used them for a long time and they're in need of some replacement. So those are like $500 a panel. And there are some conditions of stairs, railings on stairs that are, the welds are breaking and some things like that. There's some conditions on the roof where we do high angle rescue evolutions for high elevated rescue. Our anchor points do not meet the requirements of NFPA right now, and we have to change those anchor points, the structural entities that hold them along with the anchor points themselves. There's some things we need to do to provide a safer building to meet the requirements that are set up for that type of structure.
What does the tech school provide then? If this was turned over to you, they must have compensated for that.
As far as
Providing one for training and stuff. The tech school doesn't have any training for burn rooms, or?
at their new facility?
Yeah.
Yes, but that's, as I've explained before in the committee, it's extremely difficult to get the required engine companies to all go out to the tech school that's probably 12 miles away and have evolutions done out there and vacate our stations where we'd want to continue to maintain a response. This way, we're at least, we can rotate engine crews in the cities and do our training at our own training grounds. We have the facilities to do that now. It would eliminate, if we wanted to do training out at the other building and had to maintain staffing at levels that are appropriate, it avoids us having what would potentially be overtime. So we're looking at trying to maintain the training grounds so that we can adequately do the training that's necessary for all firefighting evolutions.
So nobody does any training on their own time then? They have to be compensated for it?
If there's off time, yes. But usually we can get that training done on duty as long as we have it close. And this is as close as we can get it. It's right in our backyard.
Yeah, so really, everything that we stuck into the tech school, you're going to use some of it, not a majority of it, because of overtime and splitting up crews.
The tech school, most departments, most cities and people feel that that departments are going to use that facility. Appleton, very limited use as close as they are. Even the town of Grand Chute, where it's located, very limited use. They have their own structures and training facilities to work on that they're very familiar with. The tech school gives you a certain number of hours. They give you like 14 hours of free instructor time. But then after that, we still have to pay more money. And that's the way it's set up. So unless something would change there where it would be free, or we get unlimited hours to use the buildings, we'd have, and they require that they have an instructor there because of their insurances and everything else. They're required to have an instructor. If someone would come in and do training, there's an instructor or maybe even two instructors required to view and maintain their presence on that training site.
So how do you stay up on the latest techniques and stuff?
Who?
There's always new technology coming through that you're going to learn at the tech school. Are the guys still going there?
Most of the people we hire come out of there with a very high level of education. Assistant Chief Sippen, who is our training officer, maintains a very high level, and he has an instructor status with the tech school, along with the state of Wisconsin. He's very up to date on all kinds of evolutions, whether it be extraction for autos, fires, sprinkler systems, protection systems. He maintains a very high level of skills and continues to upgrade his needs to provide training for us.
So where in the budget is the filling in where when the tech school left off and you had to take it over? Well, you had to take over the building and the maintenance of the building, and
that's what we're asking for, is some money to actually.
how much total is that?
How much total is it going to be? We've got we had $40,000 in the budget for this year. But Mayor Merkus and Mayor Crawford both, it went the direction of knocking that down to $20,000 this year, and hopefully $20,000 next year to try to make the changes to the burn building, or the improvements and necessary changes.
So what are the ongoing costs?
The ongoing costs are very minimal. I mean, the only thing that's out there is electricity. If you use electricity, you pay for electricity. Very minimal. Otherwise, it's just it's a pretty weatherproof building. It sits there, and there's I would have to say there's almost no costs involved except for the maintenance that's required to maintain the building.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Zelensky, I had the same questions. I'm on the Fire Commission, and I had the same questions with the Fox Valley Tech. I thought the taxpayers were spending $35 million out there to have a public service facility, if you will, and then to find out that it's... But I've also asked for a comprehensive budget with this burn building to find out where we're going in the future here, what are our needs, and we haven't had that yet, but we're working towards it to see what the total needs are for that building. Something I think it's important that the city of Menasha and the city of Neenah both have certified mechanics, and I think somehow we need to build a partnership with maintaining these very, very expensive vehicles. And I know you guys have, I think you call them mechanics or something, but you know, they're not certified people, just like the public works mechanics aren't certified firefighters. And I think with our vehicles, we need to get these into our system and have the proper professionals work on those vehicles. And I think we had touched on this a little bit, that the Neenah was looking at some of these vehicles.
Right now, we've tried to utilize, whether it be an independent agent, an outside company, L&S Trucking, different trucking entities, to try to provide professional services. Our mechanics they do go through various levels of training, from fire pump mechanics. They can do a lot of the basics as far as maintaining the vehicles. It's just not that they maintain vehicles, they also maintain equipment throughout the chainsaws, different breathing apparatus. There's a lot of different things that they're responsible for. That sort of the word mechanic encompasses a lot of different things with us, but they do routine maintenance on the vehicles and try to make sure that the annual stuff, quarterly, semi-annual stuff, things are done on a regular basis versus having to send them off to a certified shop. Now, the larger stuff that we don't have the facilities to do, as far as suspensions or brakes or things like that, we don't have the equipment to do all that, to lift the trucks and things. So there is a limited amount that the mechanics can do at this time, but they still provide services, and they maintain the facilities as far as HVAC equipment, a lot of those things. They also do that maintenance for us also.
Okay. Who does the basics, like oil changes?
Our mechanics do the oil changes.
Okay. But I think we have an opportunity here, that we have professional certified truck mechanics in both cities. And I think because of the tremendous cost of this equipment, I think maybe it should be put into their hands. And I'm not sure how that would work, but I think it's something that both cities should investigate because of our investment in these vehicles. On page 44, you have a personal protective equipment increase $5,000 to purchase 4 sets of ballistic PPE. And it's for that we do not have any personal protective gear for our staff in any future shooter incidents. And how do we train for that? I don't think our firefighters should be put into a situation where there's an active shooter. I think until the situation's secured. For instance, Nina had an active shooter at Kmart or Walmart, and it wasn't disclosed for over a half hour that that active shooter was still in the building, still at the register with 2 guns in her smock, and possibly gonna shoot more people. So if we have an active shooter, what is our policy with the fire department?
Right now, our policy is to try to have the police be able to escort us to a safe scene. But the different parameters that are involved are being developed for active shooters are to try to get emergency medical care to those individuals. Our firefighters are those individuals. And when we had the Trestle Trail Bridge, they felt very uncomfortable, but were willing to, took the reassurance of the police department that they had the scene under control, but yet the police were wearing vests and protective gear, and our firefighters were exposed to if there was someone else that was there. They thought they had the scene secure, but in that case, the police were still protected, and the thought process is to have those people protected. And we look at protecting the, we'd have those vests on the command car. The command car would be responding to all those incidents, and those vests would be immediately available for the emergency medical services that the firefighters provide. And the police look they look forward to getting that assistance, because it's, as you could probably guess, on a Trestle Trail, it was pretty hectic, and we just want to make sure our firefighters that are responding to that area are protected.
Well, the situation there is that the shooter was already dead when we got there. In the case in Nina at Walmart, we had an active shooter with 2 weapons that nobody even knew who she was for the first 20 minutes to a half hour. And so what I'm saying here is, so the chain of command is, you guys don't go in until the police department has a secured area and tell you that you can come in safely?
Yes, but it's really, they try to do the best evaluation they can as soon as they can, but there's still never that 100% that you really can guarantee that somebody or someone else is not involved. And at that point, the Nina one, it was definitely a tragic event, and a very seriously taken issue by all the police agencies that responded, and Nina Menasha Fire Rescue. But we're looking at proceeding now to work with, there's programs right now and instruction through different police agencies that will offer the training to the police and fire to coordinate their efforts in an active shooter incident.
And certainly, again, it's our responsibility as an employer to provide a safe environment, and I certainly hope that both departments can work together to provide the utmost safety for our, you know, if we don't want to risk the life of an employee here if the situation isn't. And I know you guys are, this is what you do. You rush in, I mean, you go to a scene and you try to take care of it, and you know, that's well respected. But I hope that in the future that we have a coordination with the safest scene that we can possibly have and minimize the risk to our employees. Is this the same type of vest that the police department wear?
Yes, it would be.
Okay, because I see it's for 4 of them, and we just had 4, I think, in our last, and I know it wasn't that expensive. You know, they were like, I think $750 a piece, and this is almost $6,000 for 4 of them.
I'm pretty much relying on information that was provided to me by Assistant Chief Sipp, and as far as the appropriate vest to have for this incident, or these types of incidents.
Okay.
If there is something out there that is the same quality and of the same protective quality, we will definitely pursue a reasonable price vest and look for that price to make sure that we get the best available for the best price. You hate to put but behind that, or add that to it, because I don't want to minimize the need for proper protection. And we'll do everything we can to make sure we utilize the dollars correctly.
Yeah, and we also have upgraded the police department a couple times, as CalVAR has different generations, and we always stay with the current generation for our police department. So certainly I would expect you guys to have the same level of safety as the police department has too. Thank you.
Are there other questions for the fire department? Would someone like to make the motion to reduce the commercial dumpster as the chief recommended? I think that sounds right up your alley, Dan. Oh, well, it's a reduction, so I thought that's why it would be right up your alley. So it's $480.
I'll make the motion to reduce that according to the chief, what he can do with it. As far as going forward, I don't know what Nina's gonna bring back to him on that.
Right.
So you just wanna reduce it 480?
Is the Menasha share.
Okay, reduce Menasha shares 480.
So there's a motion, a second, to reduce line 225 commercial dumpster, the Menasha share of $480. Is there any discussion? Alderman Taylor? This is the line that Al was talking about that was $1,200 total,
Right.
and the Menasha share was $480. And Nina would provide it instead. It's on,
Dumpster, yeah.
yeah, page 46. That's what he just did. And you had your light on, so. Oh, okay. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Motion carried on roll call 6-0.
Alderman Taylor?
Something the chief and I talked about some months ago, last summer, and it was the safety of our employees, and there was an incident that we all see in the newspaper, and there's city councils that have taken action with this, and I think it's a safety issue that probably both councils will have to look at, and that's doing the fundraiser with the boot out in the street. And there was a terrible incident in Michigan where a firefighter was killed intentionally by a motorist with the when they were raising money with the boots out in the traffic lanes. And I think it's something that, talking about safety here and looking at the department, and as leaders of the community, always first and foremost is providing a safe work environment. So I think that's something, that policy we should look at.
That's
see
something
other countries.
that should probably be brought up either in joint finance or
I
the
know, but
fire
I'm just
commission.
talking here as we're talking at this point with safety issues and things, and the sooner you can talk about it, the sooner I think we could say something about it, the better, because about the time you don't say anything, something else happens. So it's a situation that we need to look at as far as for safety for our employees. And I had one other thing here. There was a decrease of $700 based on employees due for recognition awards. What is the total amount? I see a decrease of $700, and what does that include?
The city of Neenah, as they see, and I think Menasha has, I don't know for sure about employee recognition, but has a program for rewarding individuals that have had 25, 30, 35, 40 years of service.
Okay.
And they use that money for that.
Okay, thank you.
There's no other
Oh,
question.
I know, one other one. The fundraising for the the dive team. Is there any active fundraising for the dive team yet? And if that is, what is that?
Right now, not at this time. The winter has, like I said, a couple chili feeds planned. Nothing right now, but that's planned for this winter.
Okay. And is there any donation still coming in for that?
Once in a while, we get a donation, not as much as we used to get, no. It's very limited. It's not as much as it used to be, no. But once in a while, we still get some donations.
Okay. And we certainly appreciate everything that Menasha Neenah Fire Department does, and in a professional manner.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, we can move on to the Public Works Department, now that Mark left.
Thanks,
I know he
everyone.
was just there.
Good luck the rest of the evening. Good luck, Mark.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks.
Hi, Al. I left his coffee cup, so it's coming back.
Adam, I thanked Mark earlier, but thanks for getting that crosswalk on Washington Street fixed. Our operations manager and safety director is very, very happy with that, so nice job. Yeah. Well, we appreciate the effort, and it'll help 300 people a day get to work safe.
We should probably start out with, have you met everyone, Marshall? Okay. Probably start out with introductions, and then we'll move from there. Just so that we all know who's up there.
Hi, I'm Jeff Nealon, Public Works Superintendent.
Mark Radke, Public Works Director. Adam Alex, Deputy Director of Municipal Operations.
Do you want to introduce the people in the gallery from your department, too?
We have Dorothy Dworshak, who is an immense help out at our Public Works facility. And we have two of our engineering staff with us. We have Charlie Hutter against the wall, who does Charlie does a lot of our drafting. He's in charge of our stormwater billing data system for billing. And then Tim Montour is our engineering supervisor, so he supervises the rest of the engineering staff, has done a number of things throughout his career with the city, from GIS to inspection to project control, and he's a great help to me. And Chris Klein.
Not affiliated.
Dan?
So Mark, did you want to start out with any general comments, or do you just want to kind of go through each department?
I really didn't have anything prepared, but just in general, it's been kind of a transition year for us, at least on the Public Works street end of things, due to some organizational changes that we did accomplish this past year. And I think it has really helped. We haven't been able to quantify everything yet, but with the addition of the lead person, remember with the reorganization the previous year with Adam coming on board as deputy director, we let Adam experience the operations and the needs out in the Public Works and the Parks departments, and came back with a recommendation to have lead persons in both the Parks and the Public Works end of things. And at least from the Public Works perspective, the initial results of that of that move and that organization change have been very beneficial. And we've seen that in an increased production out in the field, and we hope to only continue to get better in that regard. And then the other, I think the other major focus points of the budget for 2016 are centered on trying to maintain our street program at a level where we need it to be in order to not fall any further behind on the conditions of our pavements. I think that we have taken a hit in the last few years, and I've mentioned that for the last couple of years, but we're starting to get that pool of funds up where it should be. I still think there's a ways to go when you look at the miles of street in the city and how many miles we are improving each year. But that's going to be a targeted objective of us in the near future, and I realize it's not easy because the costs are going up. Adam just told me this week that concrete costs are expected to go up 10%, 15%? $10 a yard on a $75 current price, so that's 15% just for supplying concrete. So it's difficult, and that's where we hope to get increased productivity, and maybe through working on larger size projects, we might get some economy of scale and benefit that way. Engineering wise, we would like to enter the age of global positioning systems for our survey crew this year, next year, and you'll find that in the budget. From talking with Charlie and Al, who's our lead surveyor, they had an opportunity to demonstrate a GPS survey system this fall and actually used it in preparing some of our preliminary field data for next year's projects. And it's kind of like if you ever get, I don't know, heated car seats. Once you get them, and once they've used it, they don't want to go back to what they had. It's been a huge time saver. Instead of 2 people, you're mostly using 1 person. And then besides just using 1 person, you're cutting the time in at least by half, perhaps more. So we see great advantage in that. And I think the rest we can hit on highlights as we go through each of the department budgets. Adam, did you have anything to add generally? Jeff?
Well, the first budget is the buildings maintenance budget, and it's on 124 or 125.
Yeah. Just to touch base on here in regards to the full-time equivalents, this is the first budget in which we had an opportunity to truly track the hours that our facilities tech person spent in our primary buildings, which would be the library, the police department, the public protection facility, and the parks and the municipal buildings. So based on actual hours, we altered the amount of time in this budget. It increased. The library went from 34% down to 30% of its time. PD went from 23 to 20. Park dropped from 20 to 15, and then the municipal buildings here picked up the difference.
Alderman Taylor?
Just a question on, I see it's not in the 2016 capital improvements, but the elevator modernization for $145,000 coming up in the future. Is that a total replacement of that carriage and the height?
No, it would not be. It would be upgrades to the cab itself to make it ADA compliant, and then the control system.
Okay.
So it would not be a brand new elevator, no.
Okay, thank you.
Did you also want to comment in the 470 account that we do have tuck pointing?
Yeah,
to
we
the
do
City
have,
Hall building?
You'll see it a little bit later in the 470 fund. We have $6,000 set aside for some tuck pointing. This sort of come about in, if you were to look on the south side of the building over here inside, you'll notice that there's some cracking. And a couple of years ago, we had Paul Reeder from Myron Construction stopped over and we took a look at it and got his opinion. And obviously, we had some roof issues leaking, and he also suggested that we shore up some of the joints out in front of the building. We have others upstairs in the penthouse, and if you recall, last year, 2014, we had some asbestos abatement up there so that we could address those issues as well. So with the roof being replaced, and if we get this tuck pointing done, then I think that we'll have a real weather-tight seal on the building.
So any other questions about municipal buildings at this point? Alderman Zelinski?
Thank you. Well, obviously, there's been a problem with the voting system up here. I've been trying to fix it for 8 years, but what are we doing with it? It hasn't been working my way, so
I can take that one, Adam, since I'm the one who keeps saying that we don't need to do that at this moment. I think we have higher priorities than changing higher priorities than changing the voting system and the council chambers at this point. We do have a remodel of the entire council chambers kind of on our long-term wish list. But as Mark was saying, streets, we need a generator for this building, an elevator for this building. So I think that lands several years out. So we have not been putting that in the budget yet at this point. Anyone else on municipal buildings? We could go on then to the engineering department, starting on page 127.
One thing on buildings. At some point, I hope we can, when you come in on Baldwin Street and you see our facility, I hope the painting on that or something could happen next summer. I think it kind of looks a little drab at this point. And,
You're talking the Public Works facility?
Yes.
We actually did some painting this year with some summer home.
Apparently I didn't see it, so that's good, because I thought it needed it, so, and I haven't been out there much at all.
Yeah,
I'll
so
start
we
getting
hope
out there
to
with,
maybe next summer get the rest of it. There should be some additional paint
Great.
in there.
Thanks.
Engineering, Mark?
Sure. One of the first things you'll notice is on page 127 with the 2016 number of FTEs, it has gone up quite a bit. We aren't adding any employees. What we did is shift around some of the locations of where their time was accounted for, and all of this was from eliminating their portion of their wages in the streets budget. We had tried that as a way of capturing additional street funds, which are a component in the formula for establishing the street funding from the state highway aids. In talking with Peggy, she indicated that we can probably do that anyhow and just keep their wages in engineering, which makes more sense. It's hard to predict how much is actually going to be used in streets, and we weren't always exactly real accurate with our projections and estimates on that. So that's why that number is up. It's not an increase in the number of employees at all. In this fund also, on page 128, 2102 engineering, you'll see that the 2016 request is considerably less than 2015, and that's because some of these engineering costs have been moved to the 470 fund. So we will either cover that later, or we could ask questions on that. What has been moved is the engineering for the 3rd Street Bridge and our Broad Street project, which is a grant project scheduled for 2019, but the engineering will start next year. So that's a DOT grant, and the engineering costs that are moved to Fund 470.
I thought that was 2018.
It's 2018 or 2019. It's actually 2019 is what the year is now. They're hopeful of it being able to move up to 2018, but at this point, we're leaving it at 2019 because we haven't been told that it has been advanced. They're holding out hope. It's not a huge project, and it won't take them that long to engineer it. So they hope to have the engineering in place and project on the shelf, and if there's a chance to move it up, we can have it moved up. And then you'll see on page 129, that under other equipment, it's 0 for 2016 request, but that is the GPS survey instrumentation and equipment that I had talked about. The total of that is $19,900, and some of that is in Fund 470, and some of it is in the Stormwater Fund. 3/4 of it is in Fund 470. 1/4 of that is in the 625 Stormwater Fund.
Alderman Spencer.
Thank you, Mayor. You mentioned that would be a labor-saving device. Is that savings reflected in the budget somewhere?
The labor savings is not, because while it will save, it definitely will save labor, we have plenty of other things for our staff to do, so it will open up that ability to get some of those other things done.
Thank you.
So anything else in the engineering section? Page 130 is replacement of streets and alleys. I think Mark has some good news for us in this one as well.
Okay, and again, just starting out on page 130, this is where you'll see the FTEs being lowered because we removed some of the engineering aides and clerks' time in there. So that's where you get the balance of that increase on engineering. And the good news is on Friday, I was down at Winnebago County and we had a meeting among the small communities in Winnebago County, and we were able to be in position for a almost $50,000 grant for next year. It's a local roads improvement program grant that is administered by the state of Wisconsin through each of the counties. And so with that additional almost $50,000, we did add a street that was not on the original, in our original list of budgeted street projects for next year. So we added Grandview Avenue for $49,050, and that, again, you will see in Fund 470 when we get to that. Otherwise, Adam, did you have anything in the streets different? I don't think there was a lot changing otherwise.
Alderman Taylor?
I appreciate the work you've been doing on Racine Street. I know it's kind of, we had some openings with the Boys and Girls Club, and guys have repaired those properly, and I know we try to keep this main corridor looking good, and certainly appreciate your efforts there. The Washington Street corridor, which is Highway 114 with the state, the expansion joints are starting to show their age pretty bad over there. And is there any type of state funding for something like that that we could apply for?
Not really, not for maintenance. We do get state funding for State Trunk Highway 114 and State Trunk Highway 47 every year. It's called Connecting Highway Aids. And what that does is we are expected to maintain that portion, those portions of the State Trunk Highway that run through the city. For Highway 47, it starts at 9th Street and ends at 3rd Street, so that would be Appleton Road into Pier Street. For State Trunk Highway 114, it starts out by Heckrod at the curve and continues through the city all the way to the Neenah limits. And I think we're getting around $60,000 in Connecting Highway Aids. Peggy said, oh, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that $60,000 is intended to cover the city's cost in plowing, sweeping, some of these maintenance items. But there is no program that I'm aware of that would cover, beyond that would cover maintenance.
It wouldn't be worth looking into because of that expansion joint issue that they had a problem with, and
I mean it's 25 years ago, so I don't think so. And that on Main Street,
Are we that
yes,
old
that
now?
was. We are. Well, speaking for myself.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
And Washington Street, they used a different technique that I think was acceptable. It's just showing its age.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Zelensky.
Thank you. What about Taco Street around by the tissue mills? Since this is a state highway, what do you do for replacement to that?
That's an excellent question, and I can try to pursue something with DOT. Unfortunately, when we did make them aware of that back when 3rd Street was redone, prior to 3rd Street, and had asked them to look at extending that project 1 block to 2nd, because it is only, the worst part is between 2nd and 3rd Street. That's from the trucking that occurs from SCA, where they had their entrance and their exit. And they admitted that, yeah, they couldn't do anything because it was too late, but it's something that we can pursue and see if there's any funding in the near future for that.
Well, what's the state's responsibility on that? They just give you the 60,000 and tell you guys to clean, sweep, and seal, and
Yeah, for
so it's pounded
maintenance.
to gravel?
For maintenance, but for replacement or major rehabilitation, they have programs. They have their highway program that they look at for connecting highways. That's how 3rd Street was done. Plank Road in the past was resurfaced with all state money. Other than parking lanes, we are responsible for parking lanes. Highway 47 to Pier Street was resurfaced, Pier and Applin Road, not that long ago. And that's what they would do on Taco Street, something similar.
So you just send them a picture and say, what do we do with this?
I think they're aware of it, but I can at least ask and see, you know, this is getting bad. Where are we? Do you have a date in mind for improvement?
Yeah, because I feel sorry for the people that live next door to it. When you have these heavy trucks, it's shaking their house. It's much like Racine Street. Is there any more maintenance we're gonna do on Racine Street, or when is that supposed to be targeted for a replacement?
It's targeted for 2020 if we get the STP urban grant that we applied for. We applied last year and we were not the project that was selected for this metropolitan area, but we did score very high. We just weren't top scoring. I'm fairly confident that we will be top score. We'll find out, I would think, fairly soon. It usually, we usually hear about that about this time of year for the next funding cycle, but that's not until 2020. So we'll have some maintenance in the
With all
meantime.
this rebuild of this bridge and the closing of the bridge and the entrances, these streets are just getting pounded.
I agree.
You notice the traffic change, and what does the state help you anywhere in there just because of the detours and stuff? People are just avoiding that bridge in droves. There's
Yeah, but
traffic jams in the city that there were never traffic jams before.
It's not part of an official detour, so no, they don't help with that.
Okay. And is there any money in there for resurfacing any parts of Racine Street like we did last year?
There is money in there. It's just for general under 30-18, apartment supplies. That's 65.5. 65. Well, 50,000 of that is for materials, concrete, asphalt, and stone.
Anything for grinding and resurfacing any portions of that, or we gotta go through
There
it like
is-
we did last time? And
There is money for milling under 20-10 on that same page, 131. We have $3,000 in there for milling, which, like this year, we, toward the end of the year, we did the south half of Valley Road, and that's what we used for that. So there are funds there. It's not specifically spelled out because we don't know which streets are going to be the highest priority and have the highest need as we go through the year next year.
are you upping the budget any for sealing cracks?
I think we upped it 1,000. Yeah, we upped it 1,000 from last year. I think we put another 1,000 in either the chip seal or the crack seal.
Because I
Remember
noticed
which
some
one?
of these streets that have been put in 4 or 5 years ago, they're starting to show some, are these being looked at or
Yes.
recorded? And
every year we go out and look at those.
And when do you normally, how big do they have to get before they get on the radar that they should be fixed, or?
As far as what, crack sealing?
Yeah, crack sealing on new streets that are about 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, well, every 2 years, Charlie goes out and rates our streets. There's a rating system called the Paiser rating system, and usually when you get to an 8 or a 7, you're looking at crack sealing. So we look at those streets that are rated that, and I'm the one who goes out and reviews them and puts together a list, and that's the program that we cooperatively share in with the town of Menasha and the town of Grand Chute. Town of Menasha is the lead agency on that, and they put together the contract, and then we ride their coattails on that.
Okay, so what's the difference between a 5, 6, 7, and an 8?
It's just
Maybe you told us once, but I
gradually,
don't remember.
it just gradually, 7 or 8 might be crack seal, a 6 or 7, you go to a chip seal or some.
So is
or
it the amount of cracks, or is it
It's
just,
the amount and the spacing of the cracks.
okay. I noticed on my street particularly, that there's cracks showing up every manhole, and
That's where they will first appear, as the manholes.
I just always thought that preventive maintenance is the best. I was always told by the former.
It is, but I mean, if you don't, you also have to look at maximizing the dollars that you use. And if you have cracks only at the manholes, it's a lot of equipment and people to go from that crack to the next one 200 feet down the road. So
Okay.
we wait until they're a little closer together when they get better productivity.
So we don't have our own crack sealing equipment.
We don't. We used to, but that was under the old type of crack sealer. Now they have a rubberized crack sealer, and it requires a double boiler, and the equipment investment was too high
Okay.
for us.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Grandview, are you doing that this year or
Next year,
next year? Okay, so
2016.
the other, like the deep utility gets time to weigh that if they need water main replacement and storm sewers and
right, I will have to notify the utility of that, because this just came to be on Friday is when I found out, so.
okay, thank you.
So Peggy, do we need a motion then to add that at this point as well?
That would be a good idea.
So Dan, you want to do that one too? You're on a roll. You can,
I'm the deduction guy, not the
well,
ad guy.
this is a grant,
This is a
so it's
grant.
still.
So
Mark,
is-
could you get do you have the number for him?
The
The amount?
$49,050 is the amount of the project. The grant was $49,778.
Well, I'll make the motion, whatever Mark said.
Well, how about if we have Peggy tell us what she wants the motion to be? Since they're two
49,000.
different numbers.
It would be to add the grant to Fund 470, which is our capital improvement fund, and then to add the additional project cost to Fund 470, 1003, 541, 8202.
So moved.
So there's a motion to add both the grant and the project to the 470 account. Alderman Keehan seconded it. Do you have any discussion on that? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Motion carried on roll call 6-0.
I just want to clarify, the grant is not going to be used for Grandview, because you have to, the grant can be no more than 50% of the project cost. So we're applying it to 6th Street, which is also scheduled for next year, 2016.
Alderman
But
Taylor?
because of that, we were able to add Grandview.
Alderman Taylor?
Last year, Director Radke, we had some projects come in under the budgeted amount, and where does that reflected in this year, that carryover?
Well, it would be reflected in both, on page 132, under the construction sub-account 82-02. The difference between the budget and the year-end projection. And then also in Fund 470, on page 181 or 183, somewhere in there. What is that?
So what was the actual carryover?
Well, we're projecting it to be 60,000 in the 100-1003. And
It's on page 182.
page 182. It looks like another 122,000. Looking at that right?
I thought last year the amount was 200-some thousand or something.
Director
For-
Stino, do you want to explain
I mean,
what happens when these
get
don't?
split up?
Yeah. It's not that this money stays in that account for next year, if you want to explain.
Correct. Well, they actually get treated differently because one's in the general fund. Anything that's not spent in the general fund goes automatically back to the general fund balance. Anything that's in the 470 fund, what we would do, I don't usually work off of estimates. So what I'll do is I'll ask for the needs of the projects for next year in the borrowing resolution that I do on the night the budget gets approved. And then that would be the worst case for the borrowing. And then at the year end, when we get all the numbers in and totaled, and we have all final numbers, then we can reduce our borrowing by the appropriate amount.
Do you recall the street fund last year that these,
Last year, meaning 2014,
yeah, where these bids came in under, and we had quite a bit of dollars.
were those in Fund 100 for the most part at
Some
that
of
time?
them were, but for 14?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for 14. So that would have just gone back to the general fund.
General fund. Thank you.
Further questions on streets? The next budget is, well, the street excavation kind of goes along with streets. Is there any questions on that one? And then the next one is snow and ice removal. Oops, I'm sorry, Dan?
Thank you. Stormwater fund was underfunded. Is this gonna be able to keep up with the street reconstruction, or? That's part of the street reconstruction.
We can talk about that when we get to the stormwater part. Street excavation isn't the stormwater portion of
Yeah,
it.
but street reconstruction, it's all tied together,
Yeah.
so.
If you want to,
Here, I might jump too far ahead on that.
We'll
Okay,
get to,
I should
when we
wait.
get to 625, we can explain that and I can show you how the funding model looks.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Okay, so snow removal. Any
Well, our-
comments?
Long-term winter outlook, it looks good, knock on wood, but the only change, we reduced the tons of road salt for next year by 50 tons. And the price of the salt went up by 70 cents per ton, so that's not a real bad increase for next year. And again, we do participate in the state road salt program, so we get the bulk prices that are bid out by the state for each of the various regions of the state. So there's not a lot of change in this budget from this year.
Any questions on that one? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you tell me how the removal of snow works in the downtown? In other words, when and how does the decision get made to remove the snow from the sides of the road?
It gets made through a discussion with Jeff, Adam, myself. Sometimes the mayor gets involved, but we try to manage that just on the basis of the amount of snow that has accumulated on the terrace sidewalk sections. We look at the forecast. If we know we're going to get another snow, we might not go out and remove it because you might have additional snowfall that would just require another removal. Yeah, is there more to your question? I think there probably was that I'm not hitting.
No, I think you answered the question.
Okay.
Yes, what triggers the decision to remove that snow? And I'm wondering if we can come up with something that's a little bit more concrete and perhaps a bit more frequent. I visit the downtown on at least a weekly basis pretty regularly, and during the wintertime I do get business owners who will express their concerns about the snow that's on the side of the street. And given that we now have a lot more businesses down there and more people and more cars on the street every day as well, parking, I'm hoping that we can be more frequent in that removal process, especially if there's a large snowfall, you know, like 6 inches or more, that we get out there as soon as we can. And if it's, you know, a couple days between, we just see the snow piling up out there, that it becomes difficult for pedestrians to manage those, the transition from their car to the sidewalk, that we be a bit more proactive in getting the snow removed.
Okay, I look at that as a policy decision. I mean, if we, at some point, I would like to bring our snow and ice policy before the Board of Public Works, and some of these things can be debated, because it's a, I think, a very valid concern on your part and perhaps the others, but there is a cost to it, and maybe Adam can, I don't know if you have those costs now, it's roughly what it costs every time we go out to haul snow, but it's a fairly expensive operation. We have tried to do it without overtime. Occasionally we'll have to go over 8 hours, depending on the amount of snow we're trying to haul, but for the most part, in the last couple of years, we've been able to do that operation without the use of overtime, whereas in past years we just go until we were finished with a certain area. Now we try to engineer it a little bit better on the front end and go in and take care of it. But if we were to make a change in policy, then we may have to adjust that Fund 625. That snow hauling is one of the stormwater fund accounts, just that portion for hauling snow. So 625 1006. So you'll get an idea of what we think it's going to cost when we get to that portion
Okay.
for next year.
What I'm hearing is that there is a policy then, but that it may need some updating.
There's a policy on when we go out to plow, how we plow, the different classifications of streets, the different levels of service for those different street classifications, where we haul, the streets that we haul from typically, and there are different levels for hauling. Downtown area is a higher priority for hauling, as is maybe around the schools. Yes, that's part of the snow and ice policy for the city.
Okay. I'm familiar
And
with
there's
that
not
policy.
there's not a quantitative amount of snow that triggers us to go out and haul, but it does provide us the different priorities for hauling.
Okay.
And where we haul.
Okay, I'm familiar with that policy. I guess I would rephrase my request then. Frequently, we run like different ordinances and policies on a complaint first approach. So in an effort for the city to work cooperatively with the downtown businesses, perhaps instead of waiting to hear that complaint, we could be more proactive. And I guess, sometimes there'll be a 3-inch snowfall and then there's 2-inch and another 4-inch, and then the snow starts to pile up, and it's not that 6-inch snowstorm, because that one usually gets taken care of, but it's when the repeated smaller amounts come and then the snow starts to pile up, and I think that's when the frustration starts to set in. So, does that help explain it?
It does.
Okay.
I would just like some validation from the council on that. I appreciate what you're saying,
Okay.
but there is an attached cost to that probable additional frequency. If
Okay.
we're trying to be proactive, I'm thinking that will result in 1 or 2 additional hauling operations.
Okay, then I will touch base with you and hopefully bring something back. We'll be able to come up with an amount that we think is feasible, and I'll bring something back.
Okay. Adam will try to get a cost. I mean, these are just projections in the budget, so we
Yep,
do our best on past history.
great, thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. Over my 20 years in having the downtown, I've seen this surface many times, and there's been different formulas to work this out. I was told that it's $8,600 for our crews to go out there for a whole evening, 8 hours, remove all that snow in the downtown, and the frequency is, as it was stated, as it piles up, or if there's a snow event coming, they adjust to that. There was a push some years back to have the frequency updated, and then there was a formula by Superintendent Jacobson, I think, to start charging by the foot. If they want it cleaned every time, then the businesses would have to contribute to that. Also, other businesses, more responsibly, they'll shovel a little opening between each of the stalls that the customers get out and can enter instead of climbing a snowbank. But it all comes down to dollars. And as our downtown fills up now, and maybe it's a bid district is created, or some sort of an additional charge per foot. But I think the department's been doing a great job staying within the guidelines of their budget. Something the community has done, and I appreciate the Department of Public Works planting the daylilies on Racine Street. That was a budgetary item, and they got them in real early this year. But I hope you can work with the park department and maybe talk to the vendor that we bought those from. And I know snowpack is good for things. It's an insulator, and I'm thinking on that street, maybe we shouldn't pull it off so tight. And sometimes you get the freeze, and then we pull the roots out because they're still fresh plants. So I hope we can adjust to that this year and do whatever the nursery says to help protect that, because you guys did a great job, and they're really doing good for their first year. And we all appreciate you getting that in so early this year. Thank you.
Alderman Zelensky?
Thank you. What's the game plan going forward with the parking ramp and snow removal? Where are they going with it?
Where are they going with it?
Yeah, are they gonna haul it out every time it snows, or are they gonna pile it up or throw it over the edge?
Well, I think they'll hear from me if they throw it over the edge. They'll have to haul it out. Or, I mean, they could pile it up until it gets to a point.
So what's our game plan for piling up, since you're gonna lose that area?
We will pile up, and we'll probably have to haul out more often, because I imagine that those parking lots are going to be, yeah, in higher demand stalls, so.
So that's figured in the budget right now, or? You talking about more removal there, or more,
A lot of times our snow operations depend on Mother Nature, so
Yes.
sometimes it's very difficult to accurately budget for that, so.
well, you know, basically an average? What,
I imagine, this is going to be the first year, so we'll see what happens, but
okay.
I think we will have to pay more attention and make closer attention to that, and we may be spending some additional funds. We'll have to wait and see.
And that all comes out of storm water?
Removal does, not just the plowing does not, but when we haul the snow away, yes, that comes out of the stormwater fund.
That's unique. Thank you.
Alderman Spencer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's very productive that we look at this issue, the removal of snow downtown. There's a cost to not do that, and that's the cost is to the businesses. I get down into Oshkosh quite a bit in the wintertime, and to Menasha's credit, Menasha does an excellent job of snow removal as compared with Oshkosh and even Appleton, in my opinion. If you travel through Oshkosh and you see the snowbanks piled up along the businesses, nobody's going in those businesses. So I think it's a productive conversation to look at this and maybe quantify a little bit better, what we do in terms of snow removal going forward.
Okay, thank you. I mean, if there's consensus tonight from the council, we can put more effort toward that. I just don't know if you have the numbers and
If you'd like to bring
make
something
that
back.
decision, but yeah.
Yeah, the last night with the CIP, we hopefully will have all the department heads here and we can make those types of adjustments that night then too. So if you
That's
want to,
next Wednesday?
is it Wednesday or Thursday? Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay, then we could bring those at that point.
Yeah, okay.
Alderman Taylor?
I don't see a problem with our frequency. I have had downtown in my district for many, many years, and I think the department is doing a great job. They watch their forecast. There's times where you have to leave it because there's snow events that are forecasted out there, and I think their frequency has been responsible to the community, to the business owners. We always get complaints, no matter if the snow's there for a period of time or snowbank, but Menasha is very proactive with our downtown and with that. And if, again, we can up that frequency, but I think it should be put on the backs of the people that want it, and it should come at per foot then to remove that snow at a greater frequency. I'd like the snow to be removed in front of my house too, So, but I haven't heard the issue. I haven't had a complaint in the last year here, and we all dealt with the polar vortex the last 2 years, and it's we got through it. So I don't like to increase the budget, but my question is the A Street. We have a new sidewalk on A Street behind high school. And are we going to be, I know we remove snow there for the high school kids on the terraces. And how are we going to remove the snow that they planted 19 trees on the terrace there? Are we going to remove that terrace snow there? And
If we remove snow, we'll just take it back to the curb edge, and then we'll leave it up to Dave Elliott and the school district to make sure that those that park there have areas or places to, cut through and get onto the walk, so.
because, it's angled parking, and the kids are going to have to walk. The reason we put the sidewalk in was for the safety of the kids, and then they have to walk behind their car out the street to get to those openings. And I was very upset. I mean, on Milwaukee Street, we put the trees behind the sidewalk, and even told Tim a few years you could run your auger right down the terrace and blow it out in the field instead of even trucking it, out in the high school field, and let it, assimilate through the ground out there. And I don't know, these trees are still very young, and I don't know if, for the safety of the kids, if we can move those trees behind the sidewalk. And where was that decision made? By the school district that said, this is where we want these trees? And I
Either that or through the plan commission, or was there?
I believe that was part of their required landscaping as part of the remodeling of the high school.
Well, I understand that, and that's great. I'm all for the 19 trees, but they should have been put 6 feet over behind the sidewalk, and we could have the same canopy, and then we don't have this. It's going to be impossible to get our equipment in there without damaging trees, and how labor intensive that's going to be. It's just why these trees are still young enough. They should probably be replanted if we want the safety for the kids there. And that's paramount, I think, and that's why we put the sidewalk in there. I don't know who pulled the trigger on saying those trees got to be there, and they can't expect us to get in there with our large equipment. And I don't know if that is a school issue, Mayor, or if that's a city issue.
This is the same way the terrace trees are planted throughout the city.
But they weren't on Milwaukee Street, they were put behind the sidewalk, Mayor. And when they go down Milwaukee Street with the plows and with the removal equipment, it's seamless.
We don't remove snow, though, any place in the city that has large terraces. The only places we remove snow is where they have very narrow terraces, for the most part, where it starts to flow out into the street where we have problems plowing.
Yeah. Don't we remove snow around the high school area?
We do in areas, some areas, yes, around
Yes.
high school.
Yes, we do.
But for the most part, it's
I lived there for 40 years, and I know exactly.
That's a school district
But the
directive if
city,
they want to.
our city crews do it. They remove the snow and they haul the snow, correct?
They do.
In front of the high school, on the sides? Yeah.
They do, but that is something that is no different than any place else in the city. There's trees on the terrace. We don't necessarily need to remove the snow on the
Mayor,
terraces.
what I'm saying is they planted the Milwaukee Street
I don't want to,
terraces.
if you would like,
They planted them behind the sidewalk, so we have that
I get
renewal.
it.
What's the difference if a tree is 6 feet here or 6 feet
I get it.
there?
We're not here to micromanage the forestry department. In fact, that's not even on the agenda tonight. So if you want to discuss it with the forestry
I'm
department.
talking about snow removal here, Mayor, and I'm just talking plain old common sense here. And the safety, if maybe you don't think the safety of these kids are important, but it certainly is to me, and it certainly is an issue that needs to be addressed.
If you want to make the motion to remove the trees and move them someplace else, you can do that.
Well, I'm saying it was an error here.
I
that
don't
those
believe-
trees should have been put behind the sidewalk.
That is your opinion. That may not be everyone else's opinion. So if you'd like to change that, you could do that. But it's the same way we plant trees throughout the entire city.
No, it isn't. And again, the Milwaukee Street
Well,
corridor, we
on
planted
one
all those trees. I have a property across from there, Mayor. I watched
On
them
one
plant
street, but
them.
it's very typical to plant trees in the tree area between the sidewalk and the
I
curb.
understand that.
Yes.
But we
So-
planted 19 in a brand-new area with a new sidewalk, and now it's angle parking, it's not parallel parking. And now we're making our children walk out in the middle of the road to get to an opening, where if there was a seamless planting area, we got to use some common sense along the way here, too. It's the school, okay? And in front of the school, we have to make certain changes. And there's no way that our equipment can clean that out. I'm all for trees, I'm all for terrace trees, but there's, this situation is wrong, and our crews cannot do the job. There's no way they can get that equipment in there, and the kids are walking out in the road. And if we gotta move 19 trees off the terrace, I think we should.
Okay, moving on to street signs and markings is the next budget. Any comments on this one, Mark?
Okay, yes, on page 139, specialized equipment, you will see the painting of traffic signals. We're hopeful of getting 4 intersections, the signals, poles, standards painted at those 4. Some of those are in really, really bad shape, and I think it's time that we do address that need. Besides that, Adam was,
That's pretty much.
yeah.
Any questions regarding the street signs and markings budget? Alderman Zelinski?
Okay, was this the painting of all the streets and that this
Yes.
budget?
Yep.
Last year you mentioned that somebody else was gonna do some intersections with different kinds of paints and stuff, and how did that work out, and did we get it done?
Yes, we did. We did the Pier Street from Broad to 3rd, and then we did London Street, which both of those were new pavement. So what you find out is you don't want to put epoxy over water base, and then when you go out and grind off what's left from some of the water base, you see it. So that's why we chose to do those streets. We intended to do some more again this year and put it into the budget, but obviously the traffic signals won out, so.
Is that cost effective that way, having somebody come in and paint them versus our people painting them?
Yeah, it's an epoxy paint and it lasts much longer. We had talked about that last year in regards to like 3rd Street, how long is, that pavement, or those markings have been there, 6 years now? And most of everything else we do on water base, we're out there every year for the most part.
Yeah, should we be going towards that more? Possibly the whole city?
We thought about looking at doing more, and it just not going to happen this year. We'll look at it again next year.
Because if it's more cost effective, then these guys have bigger crews and they get it done faster and there's less obstruction to traffic. And I noticed that in other cities, they just bring in a big crew and they get the whole city done much faster than piecemealing like we're doing. And I don't know, you're always dependent on the weather then. Not that they aren't, but if you send a big enough crew in and get it done quick, and that's something you guys are probably looking at, because you need your need your manpower elsewhere, and
You have to balance the cost of that contracted service versus what it costs us to do that. Definitely for the epoxy, it's worthwhile. We aren't equipped right now to do the epoxy marking.
so for the areas that you did, what was the cost saving over the 6 years versus our guys going out and painting them every year?
I didn't calculate that,
Okay.
And again, that was a program that we jointly went in with City of Neenah. So trying to maximize savings just with the larger contracts.
So you could probably get back to the next council or whatever, what the cost saving is. Thank you.
Anything else on street signs and markings? Alderman Taylor?
Just an issue that I see cropping up on the 3rd Street. The community spent a lot of money on the colored stamped concrete, and I see it's a certain type of weed that, I don't know if they call it creeping Jenny or something, but the weed comes up and then it spreads out flat. It doesn't go up, and I see that more and more. We have a lot of rental property, and I know we're not going to get compliance with renters going out and maintaining that, but I'm just thinking in the spring of the year, maybe a quick hit on that with some sort of a herbicide to stop that, because it's getting to the point now, if you look in the fall here, that and I think we respray that every 2 years. Don't we reseal that or something?
Every 3.
Every 3. Okay. I don't know what cycle we're in with that, but it's certainly starting to show up out there, and it's a nice enhancement that the community spent their money on. So
Just so you're aware, we were able to get the crosswalks on 3rd and Racine sealed this year.
Okay, great, thanks.
So just for your information, I did ask that we do the same thing on some of our intersections and some of the raised areas in the centers of the streets. I noticed that we must have missed, or no, we couldn't do the one on Midway because it's not ours, but sometimes in those joints we get some really awful weeds and things. So if we could try to work on those at the same time as what you were talking about on 3rd Street, that'd be great. Alderman Zelinski?
Traffic signals, are we removing any this year? Because you were talking about the state was taking over something on Oneida, and we're talking about the one on Main Street. Is that in this budget or addressed?
We're hopeful of removing the Main and Mill Street signal, yes.
Did the state take ownership of the one on Oneida Street? Remember that discussion?
Not yet.
When is that?
That's intended to take place when the Oneida Street is resurfaced,
Okay, that's up.
and that's kind of up in the air.
Moving target.
It is a moving target.
Okay. Are there any other street signals that we're talking about upgrading, or?
Not at this time. We had considered countdown signals for 7th and Racine Street, but just with the other costs in this year's budget, that one was not advanced.
Well, none of that's-
Similar to what we have at Main and
Is
Racine.
any of that stuff mandatory that you got to phase in?
No,
The
I
countdown?
don't think, it's just, is it mandatory for No, it's not mandatory.
I remember it's changing the colors of some signs and stuff, and something you have to go to neon green or something. Is that mandatory, or?
For the, yeah, for the school zones.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question, Lake Park is up, we're gonna be redoing Lake Park. Is the signals coming out at Highway 114/10 Lake Park?
No,
They're not gonna put a roundabout in there or anything?
no.
Okay.
And those are not our signals, but those are the state signals,
Really? Okay, thank you.
so we don't have any cost.
Okay, the next section is sidewalks and crosswalks. Do you have any comments on that one, Mark?
Yeah, that was one of the areas that we wanted to spend a little more time and money on, which we did. If you look, we had like 15,000 in the 470 fund last year, of which we were able to do about 3,900 lineal feet of 5-foot sidewalk this summer and fall. We didn't quite use up the full 15, but did quite a bit of it. So, and moving forward, we put, actually there'll be like $30,800 in the 470 fund. 20 of that would be for concrete, and then about 10.8 in supplies to continue with our sidewalk program. It's been a number of years since we've been out and have addressed potential trip fall hazards, and we intend to be a little better prepared so that as soon as we get warm enough weather this spring, we can jump on it right away.
Any questions about sidewalks? Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The work that's been done on those is greatly appreciated. I noticed that there were more markings done towards middle to end of October, and now we're in November, so are those that are marked to be removed going to wait till spring?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask what the green marking is, the green dot?
Mud jacking.
Okay.
And then the pink will be removal.
Thank you. My 4-year-old asks all the time, what does the green mean, Mama? I don't know.
Are you smarter than a 4-year-old?
Now you are. Okay, the next budget is the street lighting budget.
Okay, and in this budget, we started in this year and will continue next year and in 2017, is the LED conversion from the high-pressure sodium. So you'll see the cost of those fixtures and the corresponding reduction in the electricity charges.
Any questions on the street lighting? 75,000 is the new fixtures. Okay. The next budget is the parking lots budget. Do you have any comments on that one, Mark?
Not really, it's just to maintain our parking lots, where all of the operations and maintenance other than snow hauling.
Alderman Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the two ends of the Broad Street parking lot are gonna probably have to look at our snow storage a little bit different. It's gonna be kind of prime real estate to have those stalls open. So thanks for addressing that.
The next one is canal maintenance. That one saw a major increase this year. Extra $100. Refuse disposal is on page oh, it's the next page. Okay, 149. Did you have any comments on that one, Mark?
Well, we had a $1 increase in our tipping fee, and that wasn't too bad. We seem to get that type of increase annually now. We hope to, we're moving toward the front-end loading equipment, trucks, and we hope that will help in our efficiency with the commercial routes and overflow routes. And Adam, did you want to just explain that? Sometimes we haven't been the most efficient in the routing of that. Hope to get better.
Right, where we're at is we're converting the dumpsters from rear load to front load. It's a service that we're providing. We got probably about half of them done, we figure. So what's happening is we targeted those that are in need of being either replaced or those that don't need to be replaced. Those are the ones that we're actually taking the time to weld these pockets on. And then we're giving the business owners, opportunities to replace those that are, I guess, in need of being replaced. And then seeing that we're doing them, we can only do so many at a time. We got about half of them done. And what we found this summer is that we have a number of stops that we collect multiple times during the week, and trying to schedule these where we're finding that we are running out, to say on the north end, early in the morning with the automated front loader, and then later in the day we actually are traveling back with the rear loader. Just how it sort of works out, how our scheduling works out for being able to service these customers, especially the ones that we collect like twice a week, Tuesday, Friday, or Monday, Thursday. Some are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so it gets to be somewhat of a juggling act. So you'll notice that perhaps if you do some of the math, that you'll see that our motorized equipment on the commercial end is probably a little out of skew, but hopefully after this winter we'll be able to get the rest of them converted over, and then we won't need to have to track back as much. So.
Do you have comments, James?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there additional training with the new front loader? I always worry about the electrocution of overhead lines, because that goes pretty high up, and you have some situations that you might be in where you have that. Is there additional safety training or awareness that with that vehicle that we could encounter that?
No training that, at least formal training. We've happened to have gotten a few cable telephone wires, so that everyone is very much aware of the need to be looking up before you cycle that.
Okay.
But no real formal training.
I don't know if you guys can, it's always good to have additional, maybe a sticker on the dash or something that,
Just a reminder.
look up. Thank you.
Okay, the next budget is the weed
Just got
cutting.
one more
Oh, sorry,
question.
Dan.
Where are we currently going with our waste? I thought it was Outagamie County.
That's where we do take ours.
Oh, it says Winnebago in here. Tipping fee has increased. How long are we going to Outagamie before they switch it again? On page 149.
It's actually
It is.
Tri-County.
It's part of the consortium, and
Okay.
do the bills come from Winnebago, or are they directly billed from Winnebago does bill us.
Okay, so we were taking it to Winnebago a couple of years ago, now they switched to Outagamie. How long does that go on for? And then they're talking what you're going to
we'll have, unless you guys know, we'll get an answer. It's a few more years yet.
Brown County then?
Brown County, so we would probably transfer at that point. It'd be a transfer station. That could be at Outagamie County, so we would still truck and dispose of at Outagamie County, where it would be transferred in larger containers and taken to Brown County.
What is the impact on, well, somebody will see the impact shortly when that happens, because it's the trucking cost, and we'll be
Yeah.
absorbing that, and
Time will tell, right? But it's still much more cost effective than us individually going out each time to Brown County.
yes.
I think Oshkosh, City of Oshkosh does that now at Winnebago County. They transfer up to Outagamie.
Okay, the next budget is the weed cutting budget. Is there any questions there? Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say from, if it's potholes or if it's weed cutting, when you call Dorothy, she gets it on the list, and I know Jeff gets out there at different times, and appreciate the team effort there with that. And I know with abandoned properties and things, it can be difficult, but you guys do a great job and a timely job with that, so we appreciate it.
Okay, the next budget after that is the lift bridges budget. Did you have any comments on that one, Mark?
Not really. It's,
If I remember right, it was unemployment. What was the change? in
oh,
this
the
one?
unemployment, yes.
Okay. Anyone have questions on the lift bridges budget? Seeing no one, we can move on to recycling solid waste. There's nothing there. And then we've kind of been doing the capital projects. Have we hit all of them as we went through here?
Well, we still have 266 to do.
Oh, did I miss I did miss the 266 one. I'm sorry. 169.
Okay. Again, this year, this budget proposes increasing the level of service for our curbside recycling program and taking it from 12 collections a year to 18 collections a year. And so you will see the associated increased cost for that increase in the level of service. Regarding the actual tonnage, we've increased that by 35 tons. It was 1,400 tons in this year. So we're projecting an additional 35 tons of material for recycling. I think Jeff had some information about how often we need to get out of the truck and make an additional collection for those people that the cart is not large enough for the frequency of service that is provided. So that might be useful information in conjunction with our proposal to increase the level of service.
Well, I reported this one other time. Just go back to 13, and back then it was about 22 times a route in 13 that the driver would get out and empty extra bins. In 14, it went up to between 30 to 40 stops a day. That was in 14, and now so far this year in 15, it is going up again. It averages 40, and sometimes it will go all the way up to 50 stops a day. And then some routes, like Friday A, it can be extreme. It can be more than 50. So that's one of the reasons why we should go to 18.
Did the tonnage go up at the drop-off site too?
Actually, no.
It went down?
Actually, I believe, what I see with the numbers is it actually went down, and I contribute that to the town of Menasha having their own carts. Because I believe they were coming and using our facility.
Well, that's where I'm taking mine. I just take the whole cart down there in the pickup truck and dump it
Sure.
in there. But I don't know if most people realize you can do that.
We try and educate as much as possible that that facility is out by us.
I have no problem with adding the service, but when you add this service, which service do you take from them? 'Cause these guys were doing something. And where are we gonna feel that?
Well, it's hard to say where we'll feel it, because some of the employees that are working on the recycling could be common laborers that do almost any type of activity in public works.
Well, they're doing something, so can you bring back next year what happens where it was compensated some? Because when you add something, you gotta take away, or,
It'll probably show up in an efficiency on one of our construction projects, you know, what we're working on at the time. That's probably where you'll see it. Instead of having 6 guys, we'll be trying to deal with 5 guys.
that's the
or
biggest complaint on some of these construction things, they take too long, and the people want the street done sooner.
Correct.
And I don't want that being affected, because some of these streets are very dependent on weather. Picking up recycling isn't dependent on weather. And I don't want these streets being dragged out till we're not ready for when the Northeast Asphalt or whoever comes in to put the stuff down, because we're doing recycling. So maybe this is the test year, so maybe let us know going forward, because you just can't keep adding things without adding staff.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have we crunched some numbers? Would it be cheaper for these, you know, these 40 incidents a day to add a cart, different cart, an extra cart to that? Those people are creating more, and a charge to them for an extra cart, so we don't have to get out of the truck, versus just putting more miles on our vehicles and putting more labor out there. So have we looked at that model at all?
We haven't looked at that in terms of replacing the getting out of the truck to make the extra collection.
I think
We have.
you know, it's kind of
I don't think there are more miles that are being put on the trucks, but it's just a matter of getting in and out of the vehicle.
well, I mean, if we're going to add more recycling pickup.
Oh,
time,
yeah, okay.
And pulling
That-
our staff
sure.
off other jobs, like Alderman Zelinski said, we're in a pay-as-you-go society. If you're going to do something, you're going to pay for it. You're going to deer hunt, you're going to pay for it. You're going to fish, you're going to pay for it. And if we have people using, as the family grows and then leaves the home, I wonder if it's cheaper for us to have an extra, that the guys don't have to get out of the truck, and that you'd have to have another container. Instead of just throwing labor and miles on our vehicles, maybe there's a better way to do this. So, something for us to think about.
I know that we do receive feedback, I'm not going to say complaints, about the fact that these are 96-gallon carts, and where do we store them? That's even with one. Some of these properties with smaller garages, and, they can't store them in the front yard setback, so it's a problem with one. I imagine it could be more of a problem with two.
And we try to educate people that our recycling center is open, that they can drop off their materials, which I know a lot of people do. And we always try to reduce things and not increase. And maybe that's the disadvantage, is to have another cart if you're not collapsing the stuff properly or managing it as best you can, or taking it out to the recycling center. Maybe you have to put up with a secondary cart for some years. Just a thought, and always trying to look at saving dollars for us instead of putting miles on these expensive expensive trucks. What does a new garbage truck cost nowadays?
Probably 270.
270. Just like our fire trucks, we talk about EMS calls with a $400,000 unit going down the road, and you know, we always try to minimize those miles on those expensive vehicles.
Alderman Keegan?
Thank you. To me, it's almost commonsensical. You're going to get more compliance on recycling when it's convenient. When it's inconvenient and their bins are full, what could be recycled ends up in the garbage can because there's room in there and there's more frequent pickup. The tipping fee per ton for recyclables is how much?
$5.
Versus $38, $39 a ton. I think we realize the savings in there, and I've heard, I don't know how many times, and it's not just families. I mean, even my parents, older couple that it's just the two of them, they fill theirs every single time. It's because there's so much more stuff that can be recycled now, and I just think it's great if they are recycling, not just from a fiscal perspective, but from the perspective of it's just kind of the right and good thing to do. So thank you for getting this into the budget.
Alderman Keon kind of stole my thunder there, but I'll echo his sentiments there and just add to it. Do you guys know how often Appleton and Nina pick up their recyclables?
Appleton is bi-weekly.
Okay. Nina's weekly? Okay, and we gotta keep that into account as well. We're trying to attract families moving into our city. This is certainly one thing they're looking at. The several calls that I get per year, I would say over half of them are talking about recycling and the amount or the frequency. So thank you very much for putting the budget.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. am interested in learning more about how long a route takes. So we have cycle A and cycle B. Does that mean the trucks are on the road 2 weeks out of the month? Okay. And then to do a route in a day, does it take a full day or a partial day?
Pretty much a full day.
Can you use the mic?
Pretty much a full day, because what we're finding is that recycling does not compact as easily as garbage. It just likes to, we compact it and then it likes to go back, and so we can't put the volume on the truck like we can with garbage. So then now we have to run to and dump it over at the landfill, and so we go 2, sometimes 3 times a day just to get the route on. So that's why it does take a day, 8 hours.
Okay. So theoretically, if we offer another pickup and 6 more pickups a year, we'd be picking up less per route, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Might take a little less time.
Perhaps.
So
Some people might not even put their cart out.
and some people might not put their cart out
Correct.
because it's not full.
Right. I know
And-
I wouldn't have to.
Okay. And we wouldn't have all of this getting in and out of the truck, which has to take up a lot of time as well.
Correct.
So there is a potential there to actually shorten the amount of time spent picking up recycling and hauling it other places when it comes to a time issue and what workers might not be doing
Right.
while they're doing
If,
recycling.
you know, they get the route on and if, say, it's by 1 o'clock, they got 2 more hours, there's definitely something else they will be doing.
Okay. So it's something to think about. There is potential there. Thank you.
Alderman Spencer?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a curious question, is there any seasonality to the volume of recycled material? Like, I'm thinking after Christmas, I would think it'd be a,
Yeah, you see after Christmas, it ramps way up, and then it'll settle down for a little bit, and then come June, July, August, it'll peak back up because of parties and, yes.
and will the extra routing be kind of scheduled around that seasonality?
Not so much. We look at a calendar, and with the holidays, we pretty much slot it with the calendar and the holidays to make it work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. What is our policy? We heard that people are throwing recyclables in their garbage, and I know we have the front load, which is nice that the driver can see, excuse me, what's being dumped into the, let's say we have somebody that has all sorts of recyclables and you've already dumped it into the truck, what happens? Are you called out, Jeff? Or?
Well, in most cases, that doesn't happen. They will see it prior,
Okay.
and then at that time, they do not dump it.
Okay.
I'm not saying once in a while, okay, it does get in there and it goes. I mean, that does happen. But in most cases, the red flag comes up, they don't dump it, it gets put on a list. I personally go out there and see it myself, and then I leave them a note stating that they must recycle. And they usually, well, sometimes they're not happy, they'll call and complain. And between us and the office, we educate them as to what's recyclable, what isn't.
Great.
In most cases, they understand. Sometimes they don't. But
Since you have these new numbers and they increase each year, we always look for options up here to look at. I don't know if you can find out what it would cost for someone to have another container, and by creating that model, what that cost would be, and if we would charge for that, or I'd rather charge someone for a container than charge the whole community for the extra miles and wear and tear. Thanks.
Alderman Zelensky?
Peggy, what are the options for paying for garbage? What do other communities do? Because I'm looking at this, we always come up with a rate for the average rate for a household. But that's not really the average household rate, because a $300,000 home pays much more than a $50,000 home. And they might not be the major garbage contributor. The $50,000 home might be putting out twice as much garbage than the $300,000 home. And this is not, in my, looking at this, it is not fair. It's sort of like stormwater.
Well, in my experience, there's a lot of communities that don't break out garbage separately. They just have it as part of the taxes, so the total cost of garbage just goes into the taxes and everybody pays their fair share based on the per thousand tax rate. There are communities recently that have been breaking it down. I'm not close enough to it to know how it is, but it's not a, do you have a family versus do you have, yeah, in most communities, the one that I know of that does it now, it's not a, if you're a family, you pay more. It's every property pays.
Yeah, it's based on assessed value. That's what you're paying, basically.
Well,
for
but some of them have a
garbage.
garbage fee now.
Okay, I
some
know
communities
Nina
have a
implemented something.
Just per house. Oshkosh does as well.
I can notice that in my neighborhood. There's just some families that just produce garbage. It's just amazing. Whether they're bringing it in from somewhere else or whatever.
But does it fit in their standard refuse cart?
Well, with recycling, I don't know where some of them are getting this much. And much like garbage, you talk about appliances pickup and stuff, there's just scrappers out there that are picking up the scrap before we get to it. and then they're producing more garbage because there's things that they gotta get rid of. Did we ever look at any different way of billing out garbage that's more fair and equitable?
Well, right now, the standard level service is the 64 gallon, and then if they go to a 96 gallon cart, there's an additional fee, which is $1 a week for that. And then obviously everyone knows about the overflow tags.
Yeah.
I mean, if,
The cost just keeps soaring in garbage because the equipment gets more expensive. Gas is down a little bit, but that can change tomorrow. Labor's getting higher, and I'm just looking for a more fair and equitable way of collecting the garbage.
but on the other end of it though too is that we are generating a fair amount of revenue, and that's one thing maybe we should take a look at once and see, what we've had for a trend there. I just know in doing that cost, comparison with town and town of Menasha and village of Little Chute, I guess I was surprised at what our net cost was due to the amount of revenue that we do generate. You start looking at it, and there's overflow, our dumpster rental program, which is an opportunity for residents to, get rid of their garbage. But there again, those that are generating more are paying more. And obviously what I'm hearing is that you'd like to see it more so that,
Oh, yeah,
but-
because we're always comparing ourselves to other communities. And why one pays proportionately more just because their house is worth more than the one that's worth less. One can be paying $40 for garbage, and one can be paying $2,000 to get their garbage picked up, and that's not fair and equitable. And when you're trying to market houses in the city, that makes a big difference. I know it's a policy change, but it's something that this council should be aware of, that garbage isn't fair and equitable.
Did you want to say something?
I don't disagree with that entirely. There's technology is there where you can weigh every stop. Again, that's a cost that we'd have to outfit our vehicles. Well, I mean, we've chosen not to go that route because of the cost, and maybe because I don't know that there was a huge call for it. We give out a certain number of stickers every year for bulky items. That could be eliminated. Then you get people that are paying for that service. And I don't know what kind of appetite there is on the council for that. I think you would hear quite a loud noise from the residents. City of Appleton standard level of service is a 30 or 32 gallon cart. Those that have a 60 gallon cart or 64 gallon cart, like our standard service, pay another 50 cents a week, I believe it is, 50 cents to $1. So there are different levels of standard levels of service. We could go that route and look at it if the council feels that it's something they want to look at, but that might take a little amount of staff time to research.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. You kind of stole my thunder. I was reading an article where there's this technology that each cart you pick up, it can tell you what the weight of that garbage is. And again, I guess this world's going to a fee-orientated society, and you should pay for what you use. We all pay different amounts for the water that comes into our home and the wastewater that goes out of our homes. So, and that's a very fair and equitable way to for us, instead of us all paying one bill, and guy's got 8 kids and your bachelor lives by himself and he's got to pay the same. So I think what we need to look at if we want to go to that particular route is the technology's there. As we're bringing different models forward, maybe we should find out what the technology costs. Maybe we should, it's always good to, the teamwork and putting this together and looking at, is that the route we should go? It's a good point, Alderman Zelinski, as is with the recycling. Instead of just going out there, putting more miles on a vehicle because somebody has more recycling or more or they don't want to go out to the recycling center. I don't think we should all have to pay for that if somebody wants to increase that. So there's an opportunity here to look at some different ways that maybe that we do business, so it's all good.
I just wanted to comment about why I put this in the budget this way. This is probably the #1 call or email that I get the week after Labor Day. I couldn't believe how many calls and emails I got. That was I don't know, was that a 5-week cycle or something? Ever since we started accepting additional containers like deli containers and margarine containers, I've gotten more calls on that as well. We're significantly less than our neighbors. When families are looking to move to Menasha, they're looking at the service levels we provide. And when Nina is doing this every week, and we're doing it once a month, especially in homes that have small garages, they're looking at that as being a huge detriment. It's not very environmentally friendly either to have every one of us driving over to the recycling center a couple times a month to drop things off rather than one truck going around picking these things up. And I've heard the same thing as Alderman Keehan has. When the recycling bin's full, guess where it goes? It goes in the other one, because there's no place else to put it in the garage. So I know Jeff doesn't want to hear that, but that's what's happening. People are looking for this service. This is the thing that I hear about at least a couple times a month, and that's why I put it in there. Alderman Taylor?
I've never had a call on it, never. I've had not one person say to me, I need more pickup. I see the boxes out there at different places. I think Superintendent Nealon told us that they see the recyclables if they're in the can, and I didn't hear that was happening, and they do mark it accordingly. So just to throw more miles and more equipment out there and more staff, to me, isn't the proper answer to this. I think you should pay for, you get this amount for this dollar and you get this amount for that dollar.
Any other further discussion on recycling? The next recycling account is the yard waste account. I don't know if you had any comments on that one, Mark?
If you look in the narrative, we do make mention of looking at opportunities to sort of partner with and work with local contractors to sort of eliminate the volume yard waste that we handle. We are currently hauling our leaves right over to Buckland. He was recently permitted or got a permit to allow him to compost a larger volume than he originally had. And although the budget doesn't reflect anything because we don't have any sort of firm arrangement, but we are looking at trying to reduce our costs of handling some of this material. And don't worry, we have plenty of compost out there yet, but it's just something that we're looking at trying to sort of save on some money here.
Yeah, it was dropping off some waste there, and I'm just amazed at the mountain of leaves and brush and whatever else gets thrown in there, that people sneak in there, and you guys gotta deal with that. There's gotta be a more economical way to deal with this stuff than grinding up, putting in egg bags, and hoping that someone comes and picks up the dirt.
And just so you're aware, in the spring it's July, we usually have them come in and grind twice a year. This past spring, we did not keep any of that material. We were able to sell it.
Okay.
I forget exactly what the dollar amount was, but we didn't have to handle it, and we did get some money in return.
How are you policing the commercial vendors that dump off there?
They can dump
They
off.
can? Is that,
As long as it's coming from the city.
well, yeah. How do you know?
And we have had discussions on that. And I'm probably guilty of not following through on some things. But Dorothy and I have talked many times about and she's done some legwork as far as what other communities are doing, and it is something that maybe we certainly should look at. The thought is that if you drive by out there by Buckland's, you know, and he's now looking for grass and it's free, and
Yeah, I
I'd
noticed.
almost like to think that just naturally that people would go over there instead of come to us.
Yeah, I
but,
noticed that, because I don't know where the town, how does the town handle it?
the
'Cause
town
we're all
does,
intermingled here, and,
right, the town does provide year-round collection at different stages of the summer, and it has to be bagged. That all goes through advanced disposal. So, but you're right, I'm sure that we still get some town material.
yeah, I'm sure we are, and other cities are getting some of ours, and vice versa. What do you forecast the cost of this, managing the yard waste? Because we brag that we want to be Tree City USA, but when you become Tree City USA, you're dealing with more branches and leaves and everything else, and
Yeah, I didn't bring my cost report with me, but I thought I tried breaking down some of those costs when we tried comparing with, again, town of Menasha and the village of Little Chute. Again, the yard waste, our cost of handling our yard waste is broken down between the 266 fund and the stormwater fund, 625. 44% of the cost is in the 266 recycling fund, and 56% goes into the stormwater fund. But what I can tell you right now is our cost breakdown for handling yard waste, the monthly brush collection is about 19% of our overall budget. Our spring cleanup is about 3%. Our fall leaf collection is 29%. The drop site cost, this is where it gets kind of hard to really decipher how much is spent on composting and how much is spent on just sort of maintaining the drop site. But I sort of forced the drop site cost at 7%, and 42% of our cost has been composting. Granted, I'm sure there are much cheaper ways to compost than we do with the egg bags. Those pods are not cheap. Maintaining that bagger is not cheap. However, there are many advantages of using that, which is we can do it right in our backyard. You don't have to worry about leachate. You don't have to worry about smell. However, you start seeing how big a number this is, and the fact that we got compost from what, probably 2014 out there yet. I mean, so it's not an issue with us, you know, trying to divert some of this material elsewhere, so we don't have to spend the money to
how's Buckland
to process.
composting it?
Pardon me?
How's Buckland composting it?
I believe his is an open air setup, but I think he's moving his product out quite a bit faster. It's not true compost. I'm guessing here. It's an engineered soil. I think he mixes it then. I'm not that familiar with his operations, other than I haven't went down there and seen him. I've just talked to him a few times. So.
Was there ever any other discussion with other communities that are neighbors, how to deal with this? And
Well,
joining
Appleton
together?
approached us if we wanted some of their leaves last year. And City of Appleton's actually taken some of their material over to Buckland's now.
So shouldn't we basically be looking as all the cities finding a massive place to compost this stuff if we're,
We can take it to
it looks like you're
landfill.
running out of room basically back there. I don't know if this yard waste is increasing as time goes on compared to what it was years ago. That's a mountain of stuff back there.
It's quite a bit. So we're looking at not handling it as many times as we do when we wind up composting it, so that's our efforts here.
Okay.
As we urbanize and suburban sprawl occur, I mean, those areas where you could do something like that are farther and farther out, so it's,
Yeah, well,
it's just
it's like,
not an
put it
easy
on the
solution.
stormwater fund, but the stormwater fund didn't create this waste. And now all of a sudden, we're dealing with it through the stormwater fund, and we're just diverting costs, we're shifting them all around, and
Also, because this is leaf collection time, I don't know if you're all aware that we do have 3 leaf vacuum machines typically, but one of them is broken down now, so we are only operating with 2. And I'm guessing we're falling behind on our schedule a little bit. But we're having, sending a loader out to supplement.
Okay, 'cause
Just
I
some
noticed, yeah, I
information.
noticed in some areas it's hit and miss on, it's supposed to be for the public, that's like the day after garbage or something your area is supposed to be, or?
We've been talking about that maybe that's a little too optimistic. It never seems like that we can hit that target, that maybe we should go to a bi-weekly as an option. And then we're going to take the opportunity with this leaf machine. The reason we're not sticking any money into it right now is that we want to at least take a look and see if there are alternative ways of handling it, picking it up, that might be more efficient, might be more effective, faster. So that's one of the reasons why we're running around with just 2 machines right now, and we'll probably supplement with the loader and some trucks and sort of get a feel that way without specializing anything like Appleton does. They pretty much have some specialized equipment, loaders, a hopper that hooks on the back of like their garbage truck, and that's pretty much how they handle it. It's a little messier than using the vacuums, but so we're going to take a closer look at that, harder look, and see if there isn't something that we can do that A, will keep us on schedule, and B, maybe not be as expensive, so.
Great, thank you.
Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. As long as we're on television here and we told other department heads you have this opportunity, we're going to continue to pick up leaves till what?
We're scheduled through Thanksgiving. However, depending, if
It doesn't snow.
it doesn't snow and there's a need for us to be out, we certainly may do that, yes.
In my district here, Chute Street, Broad Street, First Street, we have an influx of all these construction workers. So, and I know you guys work a little bit of flex hours, so they're getting in here about 6:30, 6:45 in the morning. So, just to make
Usually
sure.
on Fridays, we have them come in earlier. Are they tomorrow?
Okay.
Tomorrow we'll have guys in early, and
Just so you.
I was watching that pile next to your place there early on. No, so we tried getting in.
We
there
have a
early in
lot
the
of
morning.
trees. Thank you.
Okay, the next budget is the appliance recycling. Do you have anything exciting on that one? Okay.
Pretty much stays the same.
Anyone have questions on that one? Okay, then we can go on to the 470 account, which I wanted to skip to before. Which is 195, I believe? 179, okay. So your sections are on,
Starts on 181 under building
Okay.
maintenance. Pretty much that whole page, 181 would be involving our department.
does anyone have any questions about this? We kind of went through all these things as we went through the departments. I don't think we talked about the roof replacement on the sign shop. I think we hit everything else, didn't we? Oh, and then there is the landscaping for the Germania parking lot as well as the lighting on page 182. Any questions on the 470 accounts? Okay, then the sewer utilities on page 195.
Mayor, we do have some
This one?
expenses on 186 TID 9,
Oh, okay.
some of our engineering payroll costs are associated with that. TID 9 is Province Terrace area, east of Oneida Street. And then also out there under sidewalks and crosswalks is where you'll find the multi-use trail for Manitowoc Road from Oneida Street east to Barker Park.
Any questions on those? You have some in TIF 12 too, but I don't know if that's before or after all this.
That's before, page 191
Okay.
and 192.
So in TIF 12, you have,
Again, a
Remind me
portion
what's
of the
there.
engineering
Okay.
payroll, and then we include the main roundabout in Lake Park Villas is in need of some rehabilitation, so that's what you'll see under street construction, 8202. And also a trail link to County Trunk Highway LP is under sidewalks and crosswalks. These costs, both those projects will be done by Public Works crews. These are the cost for running the equipment and for supplying the materials to get this accomplished. In addition, there's an engineering cost for a road, a street that would be connected out to Highway LP or toward the southern end of the commercial development, which will allow another access point for that commercial area. And that would be outside engineering.
anyone have questions on the TIF 12 items? No? Okay. So then we're at 195 sanitary sewer?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any comments on this?
I do. There are some additional engineering costs on page 197. The first different one is toward the top of the page, you'll see a CMOM submittal. This is a new mandate by the state and federal governments. CMOM is a capacity management, operation, and maintenance. It's a requirement that all sanitary sewer collection system operators must now comply with starting in July of 2016. And what it does is it tries, it's a document that will indicate how the city will try to prevent sewer backups, how they look at having the capacity to serve future developments, how their system operates, the level of maintenance on the system to ensure proper performance in the system, preventing basement backups, health issues, that type of thing. So unfortunately, it's a fairly lengthy document that has to be set up, so there's a cost for doing that from outside engineering to assist us with that. The Clean Water Fund project implementation would be for a potential project on the island, on Doty Island portion of the city, where we still have not completed all of our sewer improvement work yet. As you may or may not know, we started with this program probably close to 10 years ago in working our way through the city in efforts to reduce infiltration and inflow during storm events, to improve any components of our system that are in need of repair. And we're getting to the end of the city's, to the portion of the city that is the public sewer. Eventually, we would like to move into the private lateral portion, which a lot of the surrounding communities are already started doing. But we first wanted to finish with the public sewer and manhole portion. So we have money in there for applying for a Clean Water Fund low interest loan and possible principal forgiveness on that loan. And then also included in that same category is a user charge rate study. We were recently notified of a rate increase from Menasha Sewerage Commission, and so we feel that a rate study is appropriate. It's been a couple of years since we've had one done. Talking with Peggy, she has been involved with these rate studies on an internal basis with City of Oshkosh, but I think her plate is rather full, so we did put money in the budget. We'll take a look at it and see if that's a possibility for early next year to have her department to work with our department in putting together our own rate study, but from what I see of Peggy's available time, I don't think that's a real likelihood, so we did include money in the budget for that service as well.
Does anyone have questions for Mark about the sanitary sewer budget? Okay. The next is the stormwater utility budgets, and they are starting on page 199. I don't know how you want to, if you want to do these all separately, Mark, or how you want to go about doing this, but.
Well, ours start on page 202. Engineering is just a component of our entire engineering budget. We have a split of 75% under the general fund, 25% to the stormwater fund, and I think that is a fair split given the amount of work that we need to do in the stormwater field. And a lot of that is mandated work, but a lot of it isn't. It's just the regular stormwater design and inspection and operation that you do in the engineering department. That would be the 625-1002. 625-1003 on page 203 is the street construction portion of stormwater, and that involves curb and gutter related expenses only. Because the curb and gutter acts as a conveyance system to the storm sewer system. Page 204 is street cleaning. That's our former general fund of street cleaning, which is the street sweeper. And again, that is now a stormwater fund and has been for several years.
When are we getting the next, the high efficiency street sweeper or anyone?
It's in under 625-1010. Page 206, Adam tells me. Where is it? Okay, at the bottom of page 206.
Okay, so is that going to stay in? Is this getting done this year?
I think it is going to be getting done next year, yes.
So is it just the standard street sweeper, or we got to go high efficiency? And
it's high efficiency.
What this machine will do for us, it will allow us to clean our catch basins, our storm system.
Okay.
Just so you're aware, we try and do that with our existing equipment, and let's just say our existing equipment's not truly designed for that, and it cost us about $6,500 this year.
So yeah, I had a question for Peggy on that. How is the funding going forward on this and the projections?
So that's what you were asking about before.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you recall, and I didn't bring a copy of it along, but when we talked about the stormwater rates, there was a line on there that said capital improvement borrowing. So there's no way we can do all the stormwater pieces of all the streets we're doing without any borrowing. We can't fund that out of our rates. Our rates are not close to high enough, so that was removed. And I think I mentioned a few times during those number of months that there would also be some borrowings involved. Right now, the preliminary numbers I have in the between the budget and the CIP, there's $60,000 in here for part of the deferred assessment program or project that we have going on, and then the other amount of borrowing would be $392,000 for stormwater. So what that would allow us to do is pay for that over time. Of course, there's interest involved, but we can't afford to raise our rates to the level they would need to be to fund all of our capital needs out of cash flow. And when the stormwater utility was brand new and we were doing less operational things, we might have been able to do that, but we can't do that anymore. That's what's happening to the stormwater utility, is it's getting pulled underwater.
Backing up a little bit on the sewer repairs and stuff on new street reconstruction, who determines that we change the sewer or we just keep patching them? Because sewers get wrecked just like the water mains do through the changing of the seasons, and we're not keeping up with that. I don't even hear of any sewer replacement.
No, we do sewer replacement. We do televise the storm sewers now in advance of our street work. So that gives us a real, I think, a real good idea of what that sewer, the condition of that sewer. And we weren't doing that in the past all the time, but we did start doing that. And so we're out in advance of our street projects with televising some of the storm
So
sewer
is there
system.
any projections on our total sewage load? Because we really got hit hard when they did this reconstruction on the sewage plant. There must be some numbers tentatively coming out there. We were paying a bigger share than possibly Nina was.
Yeah, our numbers have been very good this year.
And
That is
that's gonna be part of
the
the
portion
rate?
of debt that is assigned to the various member communities and participating communities or sewerage districts is based on the components of flow, BOD, and total suspended solids. And again, knock on wood, but for this year and a good portion of last year, our numbers have come down drastically. And that's a result of better monitoring both at the industries and better monitoring at the incoming, at the influent at the Nina Menasha plant. And in addition to that, it's some of the I&I removal that has been done.
Well,
So,
how often does
anyhow, the debt payments, so they're based on that particular
Yes.
month's flows from each of the communities. So that will go up and down based on how much we're contributing each month to the treatment plant.
so that's reflected in everybody's bill then?
I mean, the bill is, that's why we're looking at another user charge study. And, you know, that rate doesn't change. Their bill is based on their usage.
I remember something when they rebuilt this plant, or when they were just in the process, our numbers were high.
They were
How
high.
often do they review those to set their rate? They said Menasha's gonna pay proportionately more because for some reason we were bringing in more sewage than,
Well, they do, they divide up that month's debt charge, debt retirement, debt service charge, based on your month's usage of their facility.
I thought there was some kind of bill that wasn't reviewed for like a couple of years, and you had to bring in your total numbers for that year or every year.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at page, I guess we'd have to go back, 621, or 601, on page 198, those are the charges from the sewage treatment plant. The legal charge on there is for the PCB issue that we had in Little Lake Utamore. But our 2016 request is below our 2015 budgeted number, and that's just based on our actual experience from where we're trending for this year. That request should be higher because the rates have increased. The charges from Nina Menasha are actually higher per flow, per pound of BOD, per pound of suspended solid, but our actual numbers are down. So even though the rate is higher, our usage is lower, so we're able to.
Somewhere in there it was tied to the minimum fee, because I remember arguing about the minimum fee, and the only thing I could take off of there was the legal cost to put on to the usage. Because our minimum fee was higher than Nina's, and we're all going to the same plant. I don't know if that's reviewed. I don't have the two bills in front of me, but when I was talking about the stormwater, I looked at our sewage, our minimum fee was higher than Nina's. And I don't know why, because we're going to the same plant. They bill quarterly and we bill monthly, but our total was higher than theirs, and I don't know what, and that was something that they said at that time because of the reconstruction of the plant. And we couldn't get that, I couldn't get that knocked down. I'd rather have it on the user fee than the minimum fee, because then I don't remember what the discussion was there. I don't,
I seem to remember that discussion. I think I was still sitting over on that side at that point. And it seems like that was based upon some of the work that we were doing in the collection system, because the base charge mainly pays for the collection system. The user charge mainly pays for the sewage treatment plant, correct?
and they said that would be reviewed in I don't know, a 3 or 4 year period, and
I think we're mixing up what our fees to the sewage plant and
Yeah.
our fees from our house to the city.
Right. Sewage, the Neenah Menasha Sewage Commission takes a look at rates every year,
okay.
and they adjust those rates based on previous year's history and their costs.
So our sewer fee rate would be based on our infrastructure that's in the ground then? What we have to maintain?
Which fee?
Well-
I am confused with.
Well, the minimum fee on your utility bill. Our sewer fee was higher than Neenah's. I don't know
Okay.
why, because it must be for our infrastructure then, or,
That, usually that, you're talking about the fixed fee.
yeah, the fixed fee.
The fixed is what goes towards capital and fixed costs and replacement costs in your sewer bill. So some of that is plant cost from Neenah Menasha Sewerage Commission. Some of it are our own costs that might go to fixed costs for the same type of thing. You know, if we had any capital costs.
Because I was
debt.
comparing it,
But the variable portion is usually goes towards the operational and maintenance portion of
Yes.
our budget.
yeah, because when I was discussing that with them, we could get it down to basically zero if we wanted to. Some communities have it down to $1. He said we could do that too, but we put it on how much you use. And they recommended not doing that because
Well-
they like their fixed income coming in and they know what the target.
And you could, it's how you do your user charge study. And you could play with that. Peggy, maybe you have some ideas if you've been involved with that in Oshkosh.
I've
The
been
danger
involved
in
with that
is
in a
if-
number of communities, and I've seen
Okay.
it go the wrong way in a number of communities. There's got to be some kind of a balance there, because if you have, you know, a bigger
lean year.
company, industrial, or
Yep.
somebody like that who changes practices, it only makes the other users have to pay more the following.
Well, I was looking at just the residential part of it when I was discussing it with them.
I don't know what kind of
Because we're always
seasonal.
comparing other communities together and they go, well, your utilities are high here. And everybody says, well, I want to conserve water, but really I can't conserve because the minimum fee is $50 on all of our base fees, whether you use any or not. And I was trying to reduce that so if somebody wanted to save, they could save. And if they want to use more, they can use more. You pay by what you use. And
Yeah, that's definitely something that would be reviewed with the
Yep.
rate study.
Yep, I was just going to suggest that. When we do the
'cause that should
rate
be
study,
coming up
that
again.
we can talk about that, because there are different ways of assigning those costs and putting it against the fixed charge or putting it against the usage charge.
Yes. Okay, that's what I was wondering when that's coming up, the base fee or whatever.
We'll be reviewing that in 2016.
Good, thank you.
Remember where you were? I think you were
I
on
think-
snow and ice removal, right?
$205.
I think that's where you
Because
were.
no, I don't remember.
I think you were on snow and ice removal.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have any comments on, you can comment as you would like, Mark. If there's questions, we'll.
Snow and ice removal, again, is the hauling portion we discussed previously. Storms, sewers, and drains. This was what used to be our old storm sewer account under the general fund, so it's the cost for construction, maintenance on our actual storm sewers themselves, stormwater ponds, that type of thing. You'll see some of the construction and reconstruction costs are in the 8202 sub-account on page 207. Again, that would deal with the manholes, inlets, storm sewer itself, that portion of it. And then that special assessment, partial special assessment that Peggy had referred to, $60,000. That's for the Jerry Hayne development portion that's going through the new neighborhood park up there. And continuing, question, the parking lots would be for sweeping and snow removal only. That gets charged to the stormwater fund. Recycling yard waste is the leaf collection.
And that's it for the stormwater accounts then. Any questions on any of those? Move on to the city garage account then.
We did make some changes as far as the wages, shifted some of the payroll splits just to reflect a more accurate, what's accurately occurring out there. If you look at the overall savings, a big portion of it would be in the fuel prices. And also, I guess you could look at in the capital 8201. But what this is would be the cost of maintaining our fleet. In addition, we maintain this Menasha Joint School District's equipment and vehicles now. And we're about 13, 14 months into maintaining all of the Menasha Utilities equipment as well. So therefore, in doing so, obviously we've been gradually increasing the amount of what we spend on parts, but we're getting, anything of that back in form of revenue.
Alderman Taylor?
Something I brought up at the Fire Commission is that we have certified mechanics, and the fire department doesn't have the full certification of their mechanics, and we had talked about on that commission if we would be using the NINA certified mechanics in their Department of Public Works or in Menasha, and would we have the capacity to do oil changes and the proper maintenance on fire trucks?
It's funny you bring that up because we were just talking about some of that stuff today. Facility-wise, it might be very difficult. We're struggling with what we have right now, much less some of their vehicles would probably be a little bit longer.
And we had talked about the NINA facility too. It's a newer facility, bigger facility, correct. And so and since we are one department with two cities, I think we have that option. So if we don't have that capacity load to do,
we'd have to take a look at how often and how many pieces there are. I know we were a little concerned, or at least some individuals were concerned when we offered to take on the Menasha Utilities, but I think we still do have some capacity. But
and I think one thing that we do need sometime in the future is a new maintenance repair facility. I mean, yes. We've gone from single axle to tri-axle through the years, and we haven't stayed up with that capacity. And I know we'd like to have a brand new public works facility, but I think that the mechanics facility should be really looked at some point.
We had it in the CIP coming up not too long from now, maybe, hopefully. A
little longer than we'd like to wait, actually.
I know.
And would that be in the same location, or would that change location?
We'd have to take a look at that. The original thought, was it 10 years ago now, was to sort of site that, keeping in mind that when we do get a whole new facility, then we'd build off of that. So there was a plan in place a number of years ago.
Because the maintenance of our equipment is, you know, if you don't maintenance it, you're gonna pay it on the other end.
Yep.
So, thanks.
No, our maintenance staff is top of the line. In my opinion, there's nothing that we can't do. We blew an engine in sanitation 3 and we let it sit, and we debated, talked about farming that out. I think we had estimates of 25, 30,000 maybe, they weren't sure. We picked up an engine for $6,000, and it's a good thing. Originally we weren't gonna, the idea was to maybe phase out one of our trucks as we move forward to the front loading commercial. But it's probably a good thing that we didn't do that, but you know, we were able to take care of that. We can fabricate just about anything out there. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. We recently had a truck fire too, one of our garbage trucks, and similar deal. We are entertaining the idea of outsourcing it versus keeping it in-house, and these guys can do just about anything.
Other questions about the city garage account? Otherwise, we have the street machinery account a few pages back as well.
As you look there, the first item is number 10, and we actually, it's replacing a single axle dump truck. We replaced the chassis this year in 2015, and we went with a hook lift body on it. And what that entails is it allows us to, in a matter of minutes, grab different bodies and pull it on. And we just got our bodies in. We got our anti-icing mounted on one of the skids. We have a chipper box mounted on, or actually we had it manufactured. We have 2 more bodies. One we will put a water tank on. The thought is to eliminate our old water tank truck for the ice rink. We'll see how that, there might be some logistical issues with anti-icing, whatnot, and timing of it, but maybe we can have our park staff come in a little bit earlier. Most times we're anti-icing during the day. So what this is the next step with that truck chassis, and we want to go to a traditional dump body with tailgate spreader and pre-wetting, so that we can use it as a traditional dump truck as well. And then the next item is number 26, is we're just looking to replace the dump body. It's something that should have been addressed a number of years ago already, to be honest with you. And again, our maintenance staff is, you know, capable, and we toyed with the idea of removing that box and just trying to repair it. But we decided that we could carve out 20,000 so we can get a stainless steel body for it. And what we're looking at doing is we replaced a grader in 2014. We have 2 graders. We're pretty confident that if we have just 1 grader, it would be sufficient for us to meet our needs. Maybe someday we might get back to doing some more street construction. Right now, most of our activities are concrete related, not as much asphalt. The other primary use for that would be scraping ice or removing snow downtown. We've altered some of our snow removal efforts downtown utilizing just 1 grader. So we're looking at replacing a grader with an end loader and go with a quick connect bucket and wing. The guys love them as far as snow plowing. We have 2 already. So it would, you know, the grader right now is also used for plowing snow, obviously in the wintertime. But going with a loader would be much more efficient, faster. I know there was some concern about weight, down pressure, but there again, we have the 1 grader to take care of the water breaks, you know, when we have to get out and scrape ice. So, and depending upon how things go, we're looking at actually taking 2 vehicles, replacing 20 and the grader, providing we can get a decent quick connect system for the bucket for being able to load salt. So that's sort of our hope, is to be able to take two pieces, the grader and the loader, and combine them into one unit. In addition, we're looking to replace an old skid steer. We have two of them. Very handy, very versatile, highly used piece of equipment that goes out all the time, and it's time to upgrade that, and we'll look at some additional attachments to make our life a little easier. The next item is what we're looking at doing here is we have the finance van, and we have an old, I think it's a Lumina. These two vehicles get used rarely, and when they do get used, they never start. So we spend time, getting them ready to operate. And our facilities tech individual right now is running around with a Colorado pickup truck. We were looking at maybe trying to get him a cab and whatnot, and just again trying to use our money wisely. We've just held off, and what we're going to do is just get him a van, and then the vehicle that he's using now, the Colorado, will be sort of the administrative vehicle. It'll be the overflow one if finance needs it, IT needs it, somebody needs a vehicle, it'll be there. And it's a truck, which then makes it more makes it available for us to use it then too as well. Park 6 would be 3006. It's just a two-wheel drive truck. We may look at going four-wheel drive. It's 2000. Not that long ago we stuck a bunch of money in it. We maybe shouldn't have. It's falling apart. There ain't much left to it. So we're going to move that out. We need to get a new brush chipper. We had an issue this past fall. We have two of them actually. We have an old Vermeer, which is probably 25 years old, maybe 30 years old. It's a backup. And then we have a newer Vermeer, or Bandit. But we had some issues with both of them in our brush collection week, and the town of Menasha was gracious enough to loan us. We sort of swapped services a little bit this summer, which was kind of a nice thing. And so we're in need of getting a new chipper. So that's what that's in there for. And then last but not least is we're looking to replace our primary wide cut lawnmower. It's only a 2008, 11-foot Jacobson, but what we've stuck in it in the last 2 years is just unbelievable. And we want to move that on. So,
does anyone have questions for Adam about the equipment that they're proposing? Alderman Taylor?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say in closing, the complexity and the diversity of your department is second to none in the city. Everything from engineering to snow plowing to sanitation to every safety aspect of our citizens' lives are reflected in your department. And I don't think it's a stretch at all. The amount of lives that you people save throughout the year, public works in this country, in this city, is tremendous. And you don't get credit for prevention too often. And but I work with a company of 300 employees, and they come from a 50-mile radius from Shawano to Walpaca to Manitowoc, from Fond du Lac, and all of them say when you get to Menasha, you know when you're in Menasha because of the street conditions in the wintertime. And I hear that a lot. And I know you guys have a tough reputation to keep. You've raised the bar very high through the years, and I know it's tough to stay at that. So always caution on the side of safety. No one's going to scream if you guys are out there putting something down ahead of time and something doesn't happen. And certainly with your brine solution that you put down when you scrape the streets, it's not only a great tool that works against the adhesion of the snow to the surface, it's really an advanced warning system. A lot of us, you get busy and you're not listening to the weather reports in the wintertime, and all of a sudden you go out in your car and you see the streets have these white stripes on them, you pay attention and you realize the next day, and I hear from people at work, they go, well, Menasha's got the street striped today, there must be something coming. So I think it gets people thinking for the next day too, which might be an icy morning or something, and so it works in many different ways, and you know, hats off to you guys. It's the toughest department I think we have with the most diversity, and going from snow removal to leaf blowing and you know, pickup and garbage in the same day is thank you. And you provide a great service for the amount of people you have. Thank you.
Any other questions for Public Works? Thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it. And we'll move on to the last couple budgets. The next one is the mayor's budget. It's on page 3. And really the only change in the mayor's budget is the distribution of the deputy clerk's position. She was budgeted almost half-time in the mayor's office in the past, and now she's budgeted basically 20% of the time. Otherwise, the budget is pretty much the same. Does anyone have any questions on that budget? No? The next one is the Common Council budget on page 31. And I believe there's very little, if any, changes to that one as well. We did increase the, oops, where is it? The publishing. We've had a lot of additional publishing this year, but otherwise everything else is pretty much the same within that budget. Are there any questions on that one? No? Well, we could change that. The next budget is a civic commemorations budget. This one has the fireworks as well as some new Christmas decorations in. We didn't purchase those this year. We still plan on working on doing that for 2016, so no real changes in this budget either. And any questions on that one? The steam utility budget, we had, is that this, where did it go here? 39. We had a permit that we had to pay for.
It was a DNR permit that crossed over the time frame, so that should be the last expenditure.
So that's what that money is. And then on page 164, we have a pretty basic budget for the farm market. The farm market is self-supporting except for $3,000 within the mayor's budget for some staffing.
Anything changing with the farm market?
The
Management or?
the manager has retired.
Okay.
Well, not quite. She has a day or two yet to go. She's cleaning up the last couple things. We have hired a new person to come in to replace her for next year. Otherwise,
Stays in the same location. I hear all these rumors that I spend a lot of time at the farm market, but
I don't have any plans to move it, but that would be up to the farm market manager. If she would choose that she'd want to propose that it would be moved, and we would talk to her at that point. Her name is Allie, I forget what her last name is. She's a culinary arts student at Fox Valley Tech right now, and she is not right now. Her fiance has a long Menasha history, and she and him are looking for houses in Menasha at this point. So he just came back. He is working for Hoffman right now, and actually did his thesis on Menasha. So, you what? He did a thesis on the potential of the Jefferson Park and public works facility area within the city and different uses that could happen in those areas. So. It probably is. It was featured within the UWM newsletter, so I'm guessing it should be a public document. So one last question before we go. I don't know if you've noticed that the city of Appleton has approved the Expo Center room tax changes, and they are looking for us to also approve those changes or debate those changes. They're asking us to do that on November 16th, which is our next regularly scheduled council meeting. They are offering to come in on either the 9th or the 11th if we have questions or would like to speak to them before that as well. And I'm not sure what the desire of the council is, if they would like Appleton to come in and talk about the Expo Center again and the management agreement and what they've passed and what their plans are, or if we'd like that to happen at the 16th. Alderman Taylor?
Since I own one of the city hotel or guest houses directly affected by that, I'm comfortable with, you know, the 16th if they want to come in with a short presentation. I know last time we had almost an hour and Alderman Keane just said short, but just give us a quick 5-minute presentation would be fine.
Council rather do it on the 16th. They do want to have this whole thing wrapped up by the 30th of the month, so that's why they offered to come in before that
I have
meeting.
no problem adding that extra tax to my guests, so it's a good thing for the Fox cities, and I wish it was.
We don't need to debate it tonight. I just want to know if you would like them to come in or if you're comfortable just reviewing the documents yourself.
I'm comfortable.
Anyone else have an opinion? Do we need them to come in?
I'm comfortable. We have all the documents.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't need them to come in at all then? I've asked her, but she hasn't further reviewed it at this point, completely reviewed it, but she does have them. This is just the room tax. It has no other bearing on us, yes.
Out by the college out here, the facility that rents rooms,
The UW Fox Storms.
Fox Storms, I don't know what their position on it is, but that's our other resource of that
Sure.
source of funding.
I haven't spoken to them.
Okay.
I've heard from a couple of hoteliers that they're, they approve of the document and they are requesting that we would approve it as well.
Okay.
So I will let Karen know that, Becky would like to speak as well.
I just had a quick question.
Oh,
We had
sure.
something in the budget about $3,000, wasn't it?
That's how much room tax we collect a year, more or less.
That was our average that we came up with, and
We've only been doing it since
Yeah.
last year, so that was a best guess.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't tied, whether this thing sinks or swims, we're not tied further financially to it, other than our room tax.
Just whatever the room tax is, that's all
So
it
then I don't have to
anticipates.
meet with them again.
Okay. Alderman Nichols?
When did you say they wanted to have everything wrapped up by?
They want to purchase the land by the end of November, and they need to have all of the communities approve it by the end of November.
So if they come on the 16th, would it also be on that agenda
It would
for the
be.
evening? Okay, thank you.
So you would like them to come on the 16th?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. I think everyone else said they don't need to hear from them
Oh.
at all.
Okay, then I didn't catch that. I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so I will send the message off to Director Harkness that we don't see a need for her to come. Her.
She's got enough meetings to go.
Okay. She'll be happy to hear that. Alderman Taylor?
The mayor had sent me the council budget ahead of time, and I was looking for direction tonight from the council on that. Well, the only thing I care about is when this body meets, that we should be televised, and if we have some extra meetings, I don't know if we want to put money in for that, or if we take it from community stormwater, there we go, and we're probably part of that, or civic commemoration or something, but I don't want to hear at some point that there's no money to have a televised meeting. So if we need to adjust that, Mayor, we can do that for a couple extra meetings, but I just want the citizens and the people that pay for this community to be able to watch their government.
My guess is we'll be over this year, just with with the meetings that we've had for regular meetings, so you should make a motion then to
Okay, well, I don't know
increase
what
that.
I don't know what the cost is, but I'd be happy to make a motion to increase that budget for whatever we think. And I would think at least 2-3 meetings extra, just in case something pops up, like we had the fire truck the one year, and
We can give you the hourly rate, and like I'd said, if you wanted to do that,
okay.
you can add that.
Well, you know how many meetings we have and what we're gonna have, and apparently you got some insight here that, so whatever you think
What's
is-
in there is the same as last year, so if you'd like to
But you're saying
increase,
that's not gonna meet our needs?
I don't even think I think we're gonna be over this year,
Okay.
so,
Whatever you think we're gonna be over, it'd be fine to,
but that includes no special meetings for next year then.
okay.
So if you would like
But I'm
to,
talking about, I would think we should budget for 2 special meetings.
okay, but
just
what
in
I can
case.
do is, we'll send you the rate per hour,
Okay.
and you can tell us how many hours you would like to,
Well, usually
on
when we
there.
have a special meeting, it's just something that we have to be informed, like the fire truck last year that,
James, I don't care what number you pick.
yeah.
I can't read your mind though, so say X hours and we can add it to the budget, is what we should do,
Fine.
okay? So I'll send you the information about how much per hour, and then you can just let me know, and how many hours we budgeted for this year.
Okay.
And then you can pick a number and you can make
Does
that motion.
Dan get a raise this year?
We don't determine his salary, actually. So,
You should submit a separate budget. Thank you. Thank you.
okay. Any other discussion?
Can we talk about the CIP for a minute? Sure. So I handed a copy of the 2016 CIP out at your places tonight. It's all punched and ready to go in the binders. I apologize because I started with page 1, and it was because I was rushing to get through it. I should have started with page 284. However, I do want to let you know that everything in the CIP is now tied to the budget. Last year was our first CIP. We didn't have it tied to everything in the budget. There were some numbers that were kind of floating around. Everything in this plan is in the budget document, and anything in the budget document that's for a capital account is also in this plan. So if you wanted some more information, you could certainly go to the project pages that are all referenced in the plan and get that information, or you can also see who the department head is in charge of it on that project page, and we can share as much information as we have with you. So I know we're talking about the CIP next Wednesday. I'm going to just be real honest with you. I'm not sure if we're going to have a 2017 through 2020 in real good form by then, but I think we'll have a list of projects. I'm just looking at setting the tax rate and all those kind of things next week, and it's going to be a tight week. So this is the budget that gets, this is the document that gets voted on, so all the projects for 16 are in here.
If there's no further discussion, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Broadcasts of the City of Menasha Administration Committee, Board of Public Works, and Common Council meetings are produced by University Studios of the University of Wisconsin-Fox Valley. Menasha residents and interested parties can obtain information about these meetings and meeting agendas from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. Expression of opinions regarding City of Menasha issues or about these broadcasts can be made by contacting the Mayor's Office, 920-967-5117. Contacting their City Alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Completing the electronic feedback form on the website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited for playback.